365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Waters inside the 10. Waters making a house call with the exclamation point on this one. 36-yard touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Trying to cut into this lead. A crucial play for the Gator offense. Mertz pump fakes, back pedals, running out of time, and they get him again. And Jonah Ellis has made a huge impact.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Penix bobbles the snap, regains into the end zone. Touchdown, Jalen McMillan.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Third down, Morris. Intercepted. Wow! Travis Hunter. Unbelievable.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
2nd and 11 coming up. Wigman looks back the other way, taking a shot. Touchdown, what a grab, Thomas! And a gritty for the city.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome into our Friday show here. The Smokes are off doing high school football as they do on Fridays. So you've got me and you've got Garrett Ross until, what time do you have to leave today, Garrett?
5. I'm out.
You're out? Where are you going today?
Going to Conley. They're going to play.
Oh, so you're at home?
I'm at home.
Okay.
Them and Cameron.
Okay, good deal. So we got Garrett for a little while, and then Jack. I'll just get right to it. Special guest in the studio today is my very old friend, young dad. He's not very old. You wouldn't be able to tell by looking at him. He looks exactly the same as the day I met him. But young Day Moon and I have been friends for a very long time. And he used to be in TV, and then he got smart, and he started his own business, and he is a proprietor of a very fantastic food truck that is on property at Magnolia. So if you are coming into town, if you're a Utah fan, you're here in town, and you're like, hey, where do I eat at Magnolia? If you haven't already been there, then I would say absolutely go to Club Sandwich, which its name is kind of different now because it's pretty much Club Trash Can Rice Bowl, right, Young Day? Yes. So it is very fantastic. If you're a fan of the Gaines family, they love these. And we are as famous as they are in certain circles. Like per capita of our circles, I think we could get percentage-wise to the Gaines. But he brought by a very large trash can rice bowl here for us today. Garrett, do we have the roll that beautiful footage right there? There it is. And I've told the guys they can't have it until we show the footage. We've now shown the footage. So there. You've seen it. We'll throw that up again for people who are coming later on in the show. But thanks to Young Day and Club Sandwich. So if you're over there on Magnolia property, please go see Young Day. Do you cater Young Day ever? Yeah, he caters too. So if you need him to cater, yeah, there we go. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're having a big event and you want something, Young Day can hook you up. So I wanted to get that right off the bat. Last week, Garrett, what would you say? There were three really good games?
2 or 3. 3 would be my max.
Yeah, so like Clemson and Duke, FSU, LSU,
right,
and TCU, Colorado were the ones that people had real interest in. There were a couple upsets. Obviously, we'll talk about a lot. Baylor, we're going to talk about that game a lot today as they play Utah this week, but lost to Texas State. Texas Tech, they lost to Wyoming as they have, seriously, one of the biggest nights in their school history coming up tomorrow as Oregon rolls into Lubbock. And that's a huge game. And like in the scope of things as far as, it's one game and all that, but they've got all 3 major apparel companies, Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour are there, like fighting for, like Phil Knight's coming to the game. The CEO at Under Armour is there. Adidas is there. But yeah, I don't think Addy Dossler's still alive. But if he was, he would be there in Lubbock, Texas, as they negotiate for an apparel deal. Like, this is a huge night for of attention coming up in Lubbock, Texas for the Red Raiders. And, all that's usually kind of outside the game, but they do that coming off one of the big upsets of week 1.
Yeah, it's really concerning. I think when you look at this game and obviously the Baylor-Utah game, I think they lost some of their luster from a national standpoint. Texas Tech, obviously, they go into Wyoming, had the lead, and just it lost it at the end. But my only concern with Tech is you've been in a situation like this before. Like, I just automatically go back to last year, right? You had Patrick Mahomes come to Lubbock, and you had this big get-together, all this anticipation, and Baylor thumped them. And when you look at the way Oregon played last week, and plus Tyler Shook, he's coming from Oregon, playing against his old team. I know that there's been some time passed, but there's definitely going to be some emotion in that as well. But, man, Oregon is just on a different level right now. What they've been able to build out there, Bo Nix is phenomenal. I think they got the better culture, the better quarterback. It's going to be a tough night for the Red Raiders, but they're definitely going to show up in full force.
Yeah, I think it's going to be I really do think it's going to wind up being a good game. I think that they've got human caffeine as their head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
And Joey McGuire, I think that's going to work out well for them. But again, Oregon might just be better. I mean, they just might be better. And I say might. I mean, I say might because they've only played Portland State, and we'll see down the line. I just think that they're set up a little bit. They've been doing this a little bit longer, even with a coaching change the same year as Texas Tech has been doing. Oregon's not fighting out of years of, hey, we had a coach that was perfect for here.
Right.
We'd made a stupid decision and ran him off, and then we went through a cavalcade of dunces. One of whom who's a senator now. I say that's mean to some of them. Like Matt Wells wasn't, but like all these guys that didn't fit there, right?
Yes.
That did. And Matt Wells and the Cliff Kingsbury didn't work. It was just not right. And I say that's probably harsh. I was probably just talking about the one guy. But Matt Wells wasn't what they needed. Like Matt Wells, I think, is an excellent football coach, but he was not what Texas Tech needed at the time. Like he was hired for a job that he's capable of doing, just not at the right place.
Yeah, I would agree. I've always looked at the Matt Wells situation in Lubbock eerily similar to what you see with Neil Brown out in West Virginia. Like it's a really good coach going into a situation where it might not have been the best circumstance at the time, and it makes them look like they didn't necessarily live up to expectations, but I think it's kind of like a flawed tenure that you got there. I've always seen a parallel between those two dudes.
Yeah, and so like whatever happens with either of them in the future, like I'm pretty confident that they're going to be successful.
Absolutely.
I just think that that sometimes you just wind up in the wrong spot, and it's not like Matt Wells would probably have been a good coach for Texas Tech, possibly at a different era, but he was not. They needed energy in that program. They needed something pumping through, and then with the rules changing, we talked earlier this week about Deion Sanders being the perfect guy for Colorado at the perfect time in college football. Like, this is the only time where Deion Sanders could be a head coach in college football.
True.
Joey McGuire, I think, is the perfect guy for Lubbock, Texas, in that he's never seen it as a disadvantage to be out where they are. And he is the kind of guy who, now that they have all this money, and we'll talk to Justin Williams from The Athletic about that in a second, all this money available and flowing through their program to rally the troops and get it done. But that's an interesting game. I think of the big, and there's a lot. There's some really good, interesting games this week. That is one of the big ones. Texas and Alabama is obviously huge. Yeah. And, Steve Sarkisian needs that first signature win. And sadly for him, usually for most Texas coaches, that's your first win over Oklahoma, right?
Right, yeah.
But last year, nobody's giving him that because Oklahoma was without Dylan Gabriel. They had first year of Brent Venables. The game wasn't good. And Texas also lost to Alabama. They didn't win the Big 12. So last year, there was no real signature win there for him.
No, and that's kind of weird to say. I think if you definitely were on the cusp, right? Like if Quinn wouldn't have gotten hurt and everything and you took advantage of Alabama, that was your opportunity. It just got away from you last year. I still feel like Texas is about a year or two off. I think we're going to see progression from them, really from a depth standpoint. I think they got the skill players in place to compete with Alabama, but I still feel like when it gets down into it and you get into the trenches and you got people, injuries happen or something, I just don't know if Texas is ready yet to compete with Bama like that. But I think we're going to find get a good measurement of how close they are as they head into the SEC.
Yeah, I think so. And look, we're going to see This is also the weeks where like, oh, Alabama, that's it. You know, this is the year that they do that. I even said this might be a reset year for them, and I haven't moved completely off that, but I'm a completely split mind on Alabama right now.
Yeah.
50% of my brain thinks like this could be a reset year, and a reset year for most schools is 7-5, 8-4. Like you just had like a great class roll through. They did everything perfect. You won the conference. You played in a big bowl game, all that. That's a normal reset for a good program. For a Nick Saban reset, that means you're like, oh, they lost a third game.
Yeah, I also feel like anytime he's ever doubted or there's his back's against the wall or something, they're eerily dangerous. Like they're more dangerous than normal. And I feel like that was the situation last year, or in this year when you look at all the turnover and everything. And also like, even when he doesn't necessarily lose a game, like when Jimbo got him or whatever, like Sark and Texas played him close. And I feel like with already losing to Jimbo, you've been passed up by Kirby Smart now. Like, do you want any of your other disciples to get close? Like, this is an opportunity for you to make a statement win and let everybody know, like, just chill. I'm still the dude. We got this.
Yeah, no, he wants them all to lose to him like Jeremy Pruitt.
Absolutely,
did.
exactly.
Like, that's what he wants. He doesn't want the good old days where oh, I'm glad you got a head coaching job. I'm very proud of you.
That's cute. It's cute.
But you don't get to beat me.
Yeah.
No, you don't get to beat me. You came out of the Coach Saban rehabilitation program or the developmental program, depending on who you are. Like Steve Sarkisian, he was in the Coach Saban rehabilitation program.
Definite rehab.
Bill O'Brien's been in both sides of it. He's been in the front side of it and the other side of it. You name a coach that's Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin was in it. Lane Kiffin is maybe the most successful member of it so far.
It's up there.
Of it. Now, as far as like the normal program, is like just hires you as a young, brilliant assistant coach. Kirby Smart's the king of that.
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher. Kirby Smart's the king. Jimbo Fisher was the first one to win a national title that was a Saban disciple. But
very true.
It's been a decade, so people forget. A decade.
Yeah.
So it's been a decade since that happened. And then again, look, on the chat room, and we got a super chat I'll get to in just 1 second. In the chat room, there's a lot of people picking Miami. Emery Winter here picking Miami. He's the only one of, let's see, he picked Miami. Did Levi pick Miami?
No, he didn't. He rode with A&M.
So who else? Somebody picked Miami yesterday, right?
No, it was just Emery.
Oh, Pierre
did.
Pierre picked Miami. So, all right, so we have a bunch of different people picking. Emery going with the Canes. I mean, he
Why?
seems...
What you feeling with Miami?
Texas A&M, they're garbage.
Just garbage.
Yeah,
A&M
garbage.
straight garbage, he says.
Not like the trash can rice bowl from Club Sandwich right here.
Well played.
That's it. But no, this is delicious. It will be. Look, the Wolves are about to get this when we go to break here in a second. But I think that one's going to be interesting. Does Miami have the athletes to hang with A&M? A&M's problem is not their roster.
No.
Right now. It's not their roster. It was the way that roster was being run. Now, look, they had a ton of that number one recruiting class from 2 years ago. Just count, like, there are some guys absolutely you can still count among that. The Evan Stewarts of the wall, all of that, who are huge. Walter Nolan's still there. But they lost like 8 or 9 of those, maybe 10 of those guys off of that recruiting class. So, like, that ranking is null and void. They're all different places right now. So,
yeah, but I mean, even though
they
kept a lot of talent. Like, and I think when you look a prime example for me when I look at that class, I always go to Denver Harris. Like, that was good attrition for them. Like, you needed to get the dude out of your program. But I mean, I still think they're so talented. When you got a guy like Evan Stewart, I mean, it's ridiculous what they have. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to the trenches and just what they've been able to build up having to play in the SEC. I think that's where you're going to see the game kind of tilt in Texas A&M's favor.
Yeah, I don't think Miami is behind where A&M is.
Yeah, definitely.
They're behind where A&M is. Now, look, if that place gets rocking, and I don't know if it's ever like the other thing Miami did to themselves, and people who went down there back in the 90s and the 80s, like when they were at their peak, but when they left the Orange Bowl,
it's been totally different.
They took away their soul because that place could get rocking in a way that the Dolphin Stadium, Hard Rock, I guess it is now. It's been like 15 different names.
Yeah,
but that it never will. It just never will. It just doesn't have it. So, but if they can get that place Orange Bowl close to rocking, then A&M's going to have a problem. I just don't know, because there's been this huge push to try to sell it out this week. And if you weren't sold out before this week happened with a SEC team from Texas coming down, I don't know what you're going to do by Saturday.
Yeah, I don't really see them selling that out. Miami's one of those weird places where you got to be winning to even draw the attention in. And as far as like the atmosphere going from what they lost with the Orange Bowl to now with Hard Rock, like, do you think that might have changed? And this is going to be a stupid question, but do you think that would have changed if they would have had the success when Hard Rock was built, and you build that environment, and that's the expectation for the atmosphere at the time, the way the Orange Bowl had been established?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, they just moved into the Dolphin Stadium. I mean, like, that's all they did.
Yeah.
You know, so it, like, you know, and that place has been remodeled, and they're doing more because they want to host it. Like, they have to keep doing it so they can keep hosting Super Bowls and all that. But I'm not a fan of college teams playing in NFL stadiums.
I hate it. Yeah.
I just don't like it. I think that I only partially like it when it's the postseason, right? I just think there's something about it, but I get it. It's fine. It just, I think that, you know, college teams could, you know, part of the reason the atmosphere was good for LSU and FSU the other night is, what is Camping World Stadium? That's a college stadium.
Exactly, yeah.
It's a bowl game stadium. They weren't playing in Hard Rock. They're not playing in Raymond James. Like, they were playing there. Now, the Superdome is a little bit different because you have, you know, the surrounding area that creates the atmosphere for you before it happens. But, yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, I don't. That's what I wonder if they can get back. We're going to talk a lot of Baylor and Utah today. We've got Sikkim 365's Grayson Grunhaver coming up. We'll have Sam Bradshaw later. We'll talk a lot of things. We'll talk Texas Tech and Oregon here in a second, and Texas Tech kind of overall with Justin Williams of The Athletic. But let me get to a super chat here really quick from Chris, $5 super chat. Paul, ESPN is going through an ugly fight with Charter. With cord cutting and uncertainty in cable, is the ACC TV guaranteed money no matter what? All right, Chris, I know that you like honed in on the ACC, but if ESPN gets screwed money-wise, why would that not affect everyone they have? Why did you just pick the ACC? The SEC would have trouble. The NFL would have trouble. Like, everybody that Disney has contracts with would have trouble, not just specifically the ACC because they're less than the SEC value-wise. If Charter Communications puts a dent in ESPN that's going to hurt them, they're going to be like, ACC. No, it's like, if that would be the problem, but also, Chris, it's bleeping Disney. They're a gigantic behemoth planet of a corporation. They're gonna be fine. Like, they're not worried about it. Charter, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna get really mad because this whole thing, I'm not mad at Chris.
Do it.
But I'm gonna rant right now. This is a gigantic entertainment conglomerate versus a gigantic communications conglomerate. These are two billionaires fighting. Do you know who wins in this? A billionaire. Billionaire. You know who loses in this? Everybody. We do. We are not winning this. This is not going to save us any money. And no fight between Disney and Charter Communications is anybody in that room going, well, man, how do we sell this to John Q. Public? They don't care about us. They just want our money. They have what we want. They're the only place that has what we want, so we have to give it to them, and now they're fighting with each other. That's how this works.
Sounds like the economy. It sounds like America.
That's how it works. I'm explaining it to you. I am fired up about this because I see these two. Again, who you're supposed to root for in Disney versus Charter Communications?
I've never even heard of Charter Communications.
You have. I mean, like, you have. I mean, Spectrum, all, like, that's who they are.
Okay.
I mean, like, they're a name of a name of a name of a corporation. Like, that's why you haven't. But, yeah, no one wins here that's not those two. And guess what? At the end of this, they're going to figure out a way where they both kind of win. Or one eats the other. Like, it's, again, money's going to win. Consumers don't win. We don't win.
Never.
Part of the reason, look, and I'll tell you, we're on YouTube, which is owned by another gigantic conglomeration. But part of the reason you guys watch this channel is you're kind of tired of the big money stuff coming at you, and you want something that's maybe more tailored towards you. You know, the mom and pops like us, you know, we can ride this a little bit, but honestly, like,
good point.
Who wins?
Nobody.
Yeah. Alex Roya, Paul Catalina belongs in an executive suite. Thank you. I hope so. One day, me and Young Day are going to go. We're going to rock in one, an executive suite. Also, we have a little bit of Pac-12 news that I'll get to. Oregon State and Washington State has filed complaint against the Pac-12 for control of the conference because they want to know where their money's going, like all these different things. And the other 10 schools have to now answer to this, which we said yesterday was probably on the way, Garrett.
No, I mean, it only makes sense, right? Like, you're technically the only two left. You're the only two who are impacted at all, so you should have whole say. Like, I mean, that's the only logical explanation for this. The fact that you're having to go to court to, waste more money and get it, I guess, legalized or however this unfolds, it's a joke because, it should have automatically been, you're left, we screwed you, you get to make the decisions till it ends. I mean, it's pretty simple to me.
Yeah. So, Josh Herbert, vote Catalina 2024. Look, I got skeletons, Josh. I can't. I can't. There's too many questionable pictures of me before I calm down,
Good times.
Look, I was at a toga party with Young Day one time. I don't want those pictures coming out. I mean, I've already copped to it. I'm done. That's it. Ruined my own chances at the 2024 election. I will promise you this. You put me on a stage with anybody who is 40 years older than me, I will mop the floor with them in a debate.
I do not doubt that.
I promise you that. Anybody, either side, 40 years older than me, I got you, Grandpa. I got you on lock. Probably still doesn't get me elected. The big money people don't like me. You just heard me go on a rant against them.
Exactly. You fought against the grain.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Justin Williams of The Athletic, and then Grayson Grudhafer, SicEm365.com. It's time for Trash Can Rice Bowl. This is 365 Sports.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Alan Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible line of 2023 models like the Grand Cherokee, Renegade, Wrangler, and Gladiator. Come see what Alan Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports here on your Friday. Justin Williams of The Athletic getting more and more assignments. Look, he was one of our Cincinnati guys early on, and now they're just sending you everywhere, Justin. You're on your way to Miami for A&M in Miami, which we will talk about before the interview's over. But a really fantastic and interesting column about Texas Tech, who has one of the other biggest games of the weekend as they host Oregon, and how they are banking big on their oil money and all these different things to guide them into the new era of college football. This had to be really interesting to kind of dive into and find out how they're doing it.
Yeah, so, I've been reporting this story for a couple months, and kind of the crux of it is Lubbock in West Texas sits kind of just north of this big region where Midland and Odessa are. People familiar with, Texas obviously know that area. It's called the Permian Basin, which is the largest oil-producing field in America. And kind of production peaked in like the 1970s, and then it picked back up in recent years with some fracking and kind of different drilling that they figured out how to do. And it just so happens that that's where a lot of Texas Tech fans and alumni kind of are in that area. And so as that area took off in the oil and gas industry, a lot of Texas Tech alumni made a bunch of money down there. One of them, or two of them, were guys who run Double Eagle Energy Holdings, Cody Campbell and John Sellers. They're actually former Texas Tech players who were there under Mike Leach back in the early 2000s. And they've kind of become two of the biggest donors. They basically run the NIL collective down there, the Matador Club. They put in a bunch of money. They're redoing that south end zone. They're building a new training facility. It's going to be the largest contiguous training facility when it's done before next year. And so, honestly, it's just a big investment being made, similar to what we've seen at like Texas A&M and Texas there in the past in that state. And so it's just kind of a big picture look at all the things that are going on at Tech with the new Big 12, them kind of trying to make a push. Unfortunately, timing-wise, they couldn't take care of business against Wyoming last week, which didn't necessarily help kind of the marketing of the article. But it's really a big-picture article and kind of one that looks at what Texas Tech is trying to do moving years into the future.
Well, look, when Joey McGuire went there, like, he's not a guy who – and we know him well from his time here and his time as a high school coach, but – he's not a guy who ever sees disadvantages as a real thing. Nobody's going to convince him that West Texas is a disadvantage. And if you look at what Tech, if they're going to put money into facilities and NI and all that, the only disadvantage that they do have is the fact that it is a very remote place. Like, when you go to school out in Lubbock, you don't just take weekend trips to Dallas or Oklahoma City or wherever. Like, it's hard to make those things to pop in and go other places. You're kind of committed to being in Lubbock. So is this one of those things that they have to do in the modern era of college football, but something if they really want to be contenders long term that they have to do to combat really what would be one of the few weaknesses to going out to Texas Tech?
Yeah, I had never been to Lubbock before, so when I was kind of working on this story, I was like, well, should I just fly into Dallas and drive out there? And anyone who had ever been to Texas was like, no, don't ever make that drive from Dallas to Lubbock. It's like 4.5 hours of nothingness. But you're right. That's always kind of been, I guess, the thing that's used against Texas Tech and Lubbock, right? It's out in the middle of nowhere. and it's not as easy to get to as some of the other big universities in Texas. You're right that Joey McGuire, like, he has really kind of been the uniter for the, rejuvenated boosters who have made a lot of money in oil and gas down there and are really kind of buying back into the program. And so I think he's kind of made that point, which is like, we're not going to make the excuse that we're kind of out stuck here. There is a nice airport in Lubbock. Once you get there, it's pretty easy to get around. But I think the sense is they want to bring people into Texas Tech who want to be there. And historically, when Texas Tech has been good, especially under Mike Leach, it's been kind of finding those underrated, underdeveloped in-state kids, bringing them out there, having them in the program for 4 or 5 years, and then being able to go out and maybe upset a Texas or an Oklahoma at times, things like that. And so I think they wanted to kind of get back to that basis, that mentality. And it's a little bit easier to do that when you can say, hey, all of our football players, 120 of them, scholarship or non-scholarship, get a base $25,000 through our NIL collective every year, which is what they do. And if you're a better player, there's probably a chance you might end up getting a little bit more than that. And they want to have some of the best facilities in the country. So all the things that have kind of been used against Texas Tech in the past as a negative, they're trying to combat that with this new influx of investment and money. And like you said, there's kind of this new age of the Big 12 where there's an opening with Texas and Oklahoma leaving for different universities to step up. And right now, with the investment and with the excitement about Joey McGuire, like, Texas Tech feels that they have an avenue to be that team that steps up.
Well, and as the season started for them last week, no team but maybe Texas rolled into the season with more hype as the potential to win the Big 12, and Texas lives in hype. That's what they are. But Tech had just so much going into this is the team that, is going to be the next one who hasn't won the conference that pops up and wins it, TCU, Baylor, or I guess Kansas State, Baylor, that nobody expects. And of course, people started to kind of expect it after, they were talked about. And then last week they go out, hot start in Wyoming, and then kind of the car stalled for a little while and they lose. So how does that change your perspective of Tech as they go in this week against Oregon, who fears no one right now?
Yeah, well, they hung 81 points. I realized it was Portland State, but 81 points is 81 points. I think if you're looking at that schedule and you're a Tech fan early in the season, you're like, well, kind of a weird, tough road game at Wyoming and then Oregon at home. Let's just get out of there 1-1. Now there's a lot of pressure on them with Oregon coming in. I think they're a touchdown underdog in that game at home. I'm sure it'll be a great atmosphere. It's, prime time game there in Lubbock, but there's a lot more pressure. Once you start 0-2, all of those good vibes and excitement that they had, expectations coming into the season, they start to feel a little bit different. And maybe some of that excitement wanes a little bit. And that was also something about the article is like, there's a bunch of money being put into this program, right? That they have high expectations for the future. But as we've seen in the past at other universities, you mentioned Texas, which might be a good example, like, money does not guarantee you wins. NIL money doesn't guarantee you going to Wyoming and win. Brand new facility and nice locker rooms doesn't mean you're going to win conference championships or go to the playoff. So they're kind of doing the one side of it where they're putting the investment in, they're putting the money into the program. They feel like they have the right coach in Joey McGuire, but none of that stuff guarantees success. So it'll be interesting to see over the course of the next 5 years or so, if some of those investments they're making and some of the changes they've made with Joey McGuire and his staff, if they actually start to pay off on the field.
And this is a huge weekend for them off the field too. They've got Phil Knight's coming in, Adidas is coming in, and Under Armour is going to be there trying to negotiate their apparel rights. Like, there's a lot of juice around Lubbock, Texas right now that did not exist even 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think you see that reflected in some of the investment and alignment they have under Joey McGuire with their boosters and with their administration. You mentioned, I think part of the hook for the Athletic that was interesting for this week was they're playing Oregon, which is another, team that's been really impacted by money and some big money boosters and Phil Knight and Nike. But again, none of that stuff guarantees success. So this would be a huge opportunity for them to kind of make a statement. But even on a smaller scale with this season, I feel like with all those expectations they had coming into this year, it would be really tough and kind of a deflating moment for them to go out and start 0-2. So I'm curious to see how they play down there in Lubbock tomorrow.
Justin, you're on your way to Miami for A&M and Miami. Both teams needed a reboot after Miami needs a 20-year reboot. A&M just basically wanted to get back to their stable 8-4 at least, and hopefully start to make some headway paying their coach as much as they are into actually winning the SEC. Last week, both of them had excellent offensive showings where that wasn't the case for either team a year ago. Does Miami have the horses to hang with A&M for 4 quarters?
That's what I'm interested to see. You remember that game last year where the two of them played. I think A&M won 17-9, right? It was kind of an ugly game, and that was before the wheels really fell off for A&M and Miami, for both teams, honestly. This year, both teams have new offensive coordinators. Obviously, a bunch was made about Jimbo bringing in Bobby Petrino, but there was definitely a lot of overhaul on the staff there. With Mario Cristobal down in Miami. And so both of them you mentioned played well, looked good against teams they should beat in week 1. Week 2, I feel like it's going to be, kind of a tipping point game for a lot of people. Whoever wins this game, that fan base is going to feel like, all right, we're back. We're on the right direction. We've made the changes that we need to make. And then if you're the team that loses it, now all of a sudden you're kind of just feel like you're back where you were last season. And you're looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking like, all right, are we good enough to do all the things that we want to do? Jimbo's obviously a little bit deeper into his tenure, but both those places have so much pressure from a head coaching standpoint. I think this is a huge game for both teams because whoever wins is going to feel much, much better, and the fan base is going to feel much, much better about their prospects this season than the other.
How do you feel about Texas and Bama? Can Texas go in there and get Steve Sarkisian's first real signature win?
I've said this about Texas, all offseason. You mentioned the hype they're getting. I want to see it first. Like, this just feels to me, and maybe I'll be wrong, as like Nick Saban, the reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. I just feel like Alabama's, and I know they're at home. I know they're the higher-ranked team, and they're the favorite. But with all that hype Texas had coming into this season, I think a lot of it was built around they're going to go in and beat Alabama. And to me, it just feels like, Nick Saban's going to have that smirk after the game, like telling us, I told you so, without having to say it. But if I'm wrong, then I think that you can maybe start a little bit more of that Texas hype and start talking about them winning the Big 12 and being a playoff team. But for me, I got to see them go out and do it before I'm really going to buy it.
Justin Williams of The Athletic with us here on 365 Sports. Justin, great stuff. Enjoy Miami.
Appreciate you guys. Love coming on. Thanks for having me on today.
All right. Justin Williams, 365 Sports. That is, let's see, what's coming up next, Garrett? Grayson Grunhaver, SIGM365.com. That is next here on 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you can't make it to Riverbend, DoorDash is available to bring it to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old, and they come every 6 months, and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
Welcome back in. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst. And Grayson, I would love to talk about recruiting and how it's going, except some of that's kind of been lost in the crisis mode that Baylor fandom has been thrown into this week after the upset loss to Texas State. They, I think maybe everybody would feel better if it was Texas State, Long Island, and then Utah, so that maybe you could see them, have kind of a get-right game where you can make some mistakes. But Utah's coming in tomorrow, and this is an offensive line. I think overall that's the biggest issue of the other issues they had, that I don't know how you fix it in a week.
Yeah, and I mean, they're facing a team that has a really, really good defensive line as well. So, I mean, the obvious thing to look at is, and the obvious thing I think to say is that Baylor is going to probably have a really tough time blocking Utah, a really tough time running the football, a really tough time protecting Sawyer Robertson. And I think all of that can be true, but I also think, you mentioned the point of, it might be better if they were playing Long Island this week, but I'm not so sure about that. And the reason for that is more so because I think Utah is actually in a position right now where it's much more likely they're going to have a letdown game this week than if they were able to play kind of a softer opponent this week and then play Baylor the next week. I think we have to remember they played a talented Florida team. Now, I don't think that's a very good Florida team, but a very talented one, and one who upset Utah last year on the road in Gainesville. And so now, Florida had to go into Utah, and Utah beat them really badly. They played a really good game and had a great game plan for Florida. But I wonder coming into this game if it's actually an advantage for Baylor that Utah got up for that game, got a lot of excitement out, beating Florida in a big-time game on ESPN, prime time on a Thursday night. And now, this might be a spot where they have a little bit of a letdown. And we'll see on that. But I also think on the flip side, this is a chance for Baylor to really come out with a lot of energy after what happened to them last week. You would anticipate that Baylor's going to play a lot harder, a lot more physical. And if those two things happen, then watch out. Maybe Baylor can actually pull off the upset.
Yeah, I do think, outside of the fact that Utah's got, it's just a team that a lot more experience than Baylor right now. But one of the things they don't, like Cam Rising, not going to see Cam Rising unless everything we've heard is a lie, which, again, wouldn't surprise me. But even if that's true, you're talking about Cam Rising in his first game back from the ACL. They have some film on the backup quarterbacks now, so the defense can work with that. So there are more positives than I think a lot of fans would want to see in all this, but it's still a daunting task because this is a Utah team that is incredibly fundamentally sound, and they just don't make stupid mistakes.
Yeah, and that's something we definitely saw against Florida. They dominated they won the turnover battle. They dominated in third down. Florida couldn't convert a third down to save their lives. They struggled in the red zone. So yeah, Utah is very fundamentally sound, and we know that about them. But one thing that I also want to point to, Paul, a really interesting stat that I kind of looked up this week because I was curious. I know Utah's got a great home field advantage, but I wanted to see how Utah did on the road. And since 2019, Utah is 35-13 total. That's their total record. 12 of those 13 losses have come on the road or on a neutral site. They've only lost once at home during that time period. So, I mean, 12 losses on the road or on a neutral site kind of shows you how different they are at home versus on the road. And you also have to take into account, I mean, they are playing backup quarterbacks who got to come into a game very prepared because they've been preparing all offseason for Florida. And now they're coming into a different test on the road. And I think that could be a big problem for them. Now, if Cam Rising plays, I don't think that the road atmosphere is really going to get to him too much. But I don't expect him to. And I do think these inexperienced backups will have a little bit tougher of a time than they did against Florida in a matchup they were very prepared for.
Great. I mean, look, Florida won last year, but that was really on the back of Anthony Richardson too. So let's not leave that little detail out of it. And was the third pick in the draft. But yeah, I am concerned over just the long haul of the offensive line was the thing that I think we thought we knew more about than we did. And I just don't know how you fix that with the schedule they have coming up. I mean, that's something that takes kind of time to build, and they just looked really off and kind of out of place on Saturday night.
I mean, you really have to hope that a lot of it is just maturing. I mean, a big part of their lack of success was the false start penalties. I mean, if you go look at those false starts, if you get rid of those, I mean, Baylor could have scored, maybe 3 more times if those don't happen. And honestly, Dave Aranda mentioned the simple fact that it was young guys or guys who haven't been in this position before that were playing in their first game and kind of let the jitters and the nerves get to them. And you would think that in game number 2, they're maybe able to correct that, or maybe, they make a personnel change. Maybe Eric Mateos decides to switch things up a little bit and bring in other guys and give them an opportunity. But I really do think that was a big deal last week, and a big thing that really stuck out to me was just missed opportunities. And even when the offensive line was struggling, which it was for sure, they still had moments where, they created a big hole or created a big run or created a pocket long enough to make a play. But it just wasn't consistent. And there was a lack of attention to details that really, really cost them. So I'm curious if this week they're a little bit better about that. They clean that up and just do enough, right? Well, I'm not expecting an elite performance. We know Utah's defensive line is great, but I am expecting Baylor's offensive line to play a lot better and at least be more sound and fundamental than they were in week 1.
Grayson, I think quarterback for Baylor, I mean, obviously all year is going to be kind of interesting because, 2 to 3 weeks they say with Blake Shapen, but you never know. I mean, like he's hurt his MCL that it's got to get better, so how long that happens, is he ready to go when they need him 3 weeks from now, whatever it is. But he was not really the problem on Saturday night. Yeah, he could have done some things better, but the offensive line, we've well documented already in this very conversation about how much it struggled. Blake Shapen had a pretty good night. Now, he's probably closer to his ceiling than Sawyer Robertson is to his. So having Sawyer Robertson get 2, 3, maybe even 4 games under his belt as a starter, I can't see it as a bad thing unless he is just not good, which I don't think is the case. I think he's got a very high ceiling.
I mean, I'm going to go a step further on what you said about Blake Shapen. I think he was not just good or solid. He was great in that first game. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is he was playing with a sprained MCL from the very beginning of the third quarter on and was still making a ton of plays for this team despite getting no protection, having no run game. I mean, you could definitely make a case that if he doesn't get hurt, Baylor maybe comes back and wins that game. That's how well he was playing. And while I don't put all the stock into PFF grades, I mean, for him to be the 3rd highest rated quarterback in the entire country with the offensive line that you and I saw on Saturday, that is almost a miracle for that to happen. So I think it does point to kind of the improvements that he made, the improvements at wide receiver, and kind of maybe a path to what his production might have looked like all season long. But you're exactly right. He's hurt now, so you got to move on. Sawyer Robertson, like you mentioned, very high ceiling, high upside. his problem during the offseason was kind of getting used to this new offensive scheme as he was coming from an air raid at Mississippi State, moving to this wide zone scheme, and just figuring all those things out. But I do think there is a unique factor that he brings to the table. His size and his running ability are definitely something that is going to be different than what Baylor had with Blake Shapen, and I expect them to utilize that on Saturday, and it could be something that definitely helps the offensive line as well, right? I mean, when you have a guy that's a little more mobile, just forces them to put more guys in the box, or at least focus their attention on Stuart Robertson a little bit more as a runner, I think that could be very beneficial and should give them opportunities to have at least a few more one-on-one matchups with Monterey Baldwin, Keytron Jackson, Hal Presley, and give those guys an opportunity to go make some plays. So it is intriguing, and Baylor brought him in for a reason. They won a quarterback battle over TCU for Stuart Robertson, so we know he's very, very talented. It's just a matter of, does that talent come forward immediately, or does it take him some time?
Yeah, I think the positive notes, the defense, it's kind of muddled for me. I mean, they didn't have a great night either, Grayson, but we could really get in the weeds with why that was an issue. Anyway, but offensively, they need to run the ball against Utah, but we saw a lot of good things from the wide receivers, which was kind of the biggest question mark of, do they have guys who can go up and get the ball? Yes, they do. They did not have that last year. That was the thing. I think they had athletes, but they didn't have wide receivers necessarily. You have guys who can run and jump, but nobody who can win. I think we saw that with Keytron Jackson and Hal Presley the other night.
Yeah, we definitely did. And I mean, this was something that just comes with age, right? I mean, Hal Presley was on the team last year, and you saw flashes here and there, but consistency, I think, was the biggest thing that they were missing last year. Because you'd have Hal Presley against Texas Tech look like a guy that's going to win a lot of one-on-one balls, but then you go look at other games from the year and you just go, okay, well, that's not really going to work, or he's not open, hardly ever. And that really made things tough on the offense in general. And so now you bring in a guy like Keytron Jackson, who is a true alpha. And, for Baylor fans that missed that, I mean, he was so good on Saturday and really had an opportunity for even more. I think the one Blake Shapen got hit on a throw that would have been down the sideline, and it ended up being a pop fly in the middle of the field, and it dropped down for an incompletion. But if he doesn't get hit, that's probably a 60-yard touchdown. So there are things to watch there with him. He's very, very good. And then if they can get Monterey Baldwin going, which was really mystifying on Saturday, how he just simply didn't play a ton. Jonah Burton played a lot of snaps, and Monterey dropped 2 or 3. I think he dropped 2 passes, including the one that would have brought them back into the game late in the fourth quarter. So they really need to get him going as well. And hopefully after this week, they'll have Jordan Neighbors back as well, who should be able to come in and provide a spark. So, yeah, there's a lot of things to be optimistic about offensively. And then defensively, they're hoping to get some guys back this week. And obviously they're not going to have Garmin Randolph or Devin Lemire. But guys like Jarrell Boykins and Chateau Reed, if they can get them back into the lineup, I think that'd be really helpful, especially Jarrell Boykins, because he was the guy brought in to play nose tackle and not replace Apuika, but definitely come in and solidify that position. And so if they can get him back, I think that will really help them in the interior of that defensive line.
All that being said, Grayson, I think all of us picked Baylor to lose this game on Sikkim 365 this week because they are playing the 2-time defending Pac-12 champ. But if they can pick this to be the get-right game, that would maybe send a message to everybody who's written them off already after the Texas State loss.
Yeah, and Paul, there's actually one Sikkim 365 writer who actually picked Baylor this week. And there's only one. Everyone else picked against Baylor, and I was actually the one who did pick Baylor this week. I did. 27-24 is the score that I'm going with. I really, really view this as a trap game for Utah. I do. And Utah's the better team. If these teams played later in the season on a neutral side and they have Cam Rising, I would expect Utah to beat Baylor rather easily. But in this game, I mean, college football is so much about momentum, about timing, about situations, and Baylor coming off of a really tough loss versus Utah coming off of a really key and important win for them. And now they got to go on the road and get up for another big game that's going to be on ESPN. I would be very surprised if Baylor didn't play this game very close, come out and play with a renewed energy and a sense of purpose. And for that reason, I picked them. I think it's going to be a grinded out type game, though.
All right, Grayson Grude for SicEm365.com. Ever the optimist. Grayson, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, later, guys.
All right, there you go. You can read Grayson's score prediction. And Garrett, I'm a little worried. Has he been like taking mushrooms or something? I don't know. No,
I mean, he might be. I'm not sure.
But look, I can see paths where Baylor can do that. It's just that either everything was bad at the same time last week, coincidentally, or they've got problems. And I kind of lean to the more common thing if they've got some problems.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't just the way they got dominated on both sides of the ball in the trenches, I'd be a little more optimistic, man. But especially on the offensive line, like there's literally no room for error because if you let Sawyer Robertson get hurt, good Lord, it is over quick. And that's why I'm a little nervous with this team.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, then everybody gets to see the fun little third string quarterback. RJ Martinez, fans get really excited, but until you have to play the third string quarterback. But we'll see. This is 365 Sports. Max Olson's next.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICKEM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Max Olson of The Athletic. Boots on the ground in Boulder, Colorado today. And Max, you are surprised. Like, I don't know if it's
turn right for
not surprisingly enough in the center of the college football world now, because Deion Sanders was already, getting a ton of attention there. And now he's come off of the win the first week. They're playing an old rival in Nebraska, a rivalry you know a ton about. But is this vibe around Boulder and the build-up for this game even bigger than you could have possibly imagined given that win last week?
Yeah, totally. I think, when I was looking ahead to the week 2 schedule, there's just so many games I loved and kind of assumed I'd probably be like at Alabama, Texas or something like that. But here we are. This is a game that, you certainly could have circled just because of some rivalry implications like that. It's year 1 for both these staffs. It's kind of, to me, feels like kind of weirdly a must-win game in some ways, maybe morally or whatever, early on here. But what Colorado did in Fort Worth completely raised the stakes. We never would have guessed that the Buffs would be sitting in the top 25 now, and a team that people have totally flipped consensus on now to be taken very seriously. So I can't wait to see what this first home game for Coach Prime looks like. The turnout, the energy of it tomorrow morning. Obviously, a little bit of an early kick here, 10 a.m. kick here, but man, that game is going to get a lot of eyeballs, and I think that's just kind of that's kind of the phenomenon of Deion Sanders too. I think there's just going to be way more people tuning into this one. Very curious to see if Colorado can repeat it.
Max, when you looked at the schedule a few months ago, I thought, this is going to be probably a good game for Matt Rule and Deion Sanders as measuring stick to see where they are and, what, where their deficiencies were, especially when you're talking about two teams. Matt Rule's got a team full of transfers. Deion's team is almost 100% transfers. And you have all that going on, and then last week happens. Nebraska looked good on defense when they're playing Minnesota. This Colorado offense is electric. So now you've got kind of two styles clashing here. Do you think that they can put up 45 again, or do you think that Nebraska, and whatever skill they have on defense, will be able to contain that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's the thing about Colorado is it was easy to on paper question offensive defensive line and just kind of these positions that they totally remade in the portal would ultimately the talent and depth be good enough. But it was very obvious that Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver, and Dylan Edwards they brought some legit playmakers in there, and to see them be that prolific that quickly was surprising, but. You knew those guys would be good, and I think that's where Nebraska is kind of lacking in this matchup is you just don't feel like there's a lot of game-changing dudes on offense for them. But, I think style-wise, they need to play a different kind of game. I think that, that they need to be able to run the ball and extend drives and limit how many possessions Colorado gets in that first half and kind of try to set the game flow there a little bit. And that's why I do think it'll be a little bit of – if Nebraska can kind of play good defense and get some stops, I think it will be a little bit of a lower-scoring game. I still think Colorado's going to win, but I think Nebraska is tough enough to maybe throw some different things at Colorado than TCU was able to, and it's certainly a lot is going to be put on Jeff Sims' pass game and run game to really be super productive and give Nebraska a chance to keep up.
All right, one of the other big stories this week was Clemson and their loss to Duke, which, Duke was in control pretty much the entire second half. Dabo Swinney's not concerned, Max, about everything, and he's kind of gone into the ultimate coach speak robot after that loss. It would be premature to call at the end, but he is ready to die on the hill of the transfer portal is bad and NIL is bad. And even the other coaches who believe the exact same things he does have just accepted the new order of things. Will this undo him if he doesn't back off?
Well, it's that's a good way to ask it. I think, usually I think we've seen the last few years, Davos Swinney, when it comes to his press conferences and his post game, he's usually going to stick to whatever message he thinks his team needs to hear and not really care how the media takes it. And probably right now it's trying to hold things together and inspire a little confidence, because this team has to get a lot better really quickly, before they see Florida State in a few weeks here. I think that you're right. Like, there's definitely lots of coaches in the business who slap Davos Swinney on the back and say, this guy gets it. This guy is saying all the right stuff in this really volatile time. But at the same time, I think you do have to embrace this a little bit. And I think you need to be pretty realistic about what are your roster needs. And you can't just always believe or assume that a freshman or a backup can step up and replace a guy and you're going to be just as good. I think we're seeing that's the area where the transfer portal is helping a lot of programs just stay good or get a lot better quickly. And I think you even look at Georgia. Look, Georgia was very proud of the fact that they didn't take any transfers for their 2022 team that won another national title. But going into 23, like, they took receivers from Missouri and Mississippi State, not because they totally needed them. Like, they still had pass catchers coming back, but they knew that receiver was a spot where they had to get a little bit better. And, even just to be safe, you went out and got some good ones. And I think that Clemson, that's the kind of stuff Clemson probably needs to be in that territory of Georgia, Alabama, Texas, some of these schools that kind of focus on quality and not quantity when it comes to transfers. I think Clemson would be very competitive in that market if Davos Swinney was open to it. I think it's not a matter of players not wanting to go to Clemson. I do think he needs to be more open-minded about it. And if you want to stay stubborn and just take backup quarterbacks and really kind of stay out of all of that, I do think ultimately, like, you are probably going to fall behind.
Alabama and Texas. Max, you said that you thought that might be the game you were going to this week, but here you are in Boulder. But this could be Steve Sarkisian's signature win, which he hasn't had yet, which is fine. I mean, he's building the program, but is this Texas team the one that will get it for him and do it in Bryant-Denny?
I mean, this is like the Texas is back game, right?
Yeah. I
mean, that's what they're going to be saying if they pull it off on the road. Certainly, Nick Saban hasn't lost many games in his home stadium since he took that job. I think the thing that gives you like a little bit of, I don't want to say confidence, but like a little bit of optimism on the Texas side is like, I think this is a pretty well established team at this point. Like, really, other than running back, I think you kind of know you've got some experienced players at like every position pretty much other than that, and you kind of know what their goals are. You kind of know what the upside is. Like, I think this team is going to roll in with more confidence for this game than they played with a year ago. And really, they gave their absolute best against Bama in Austin a year ago. But I think the thing with Bama is there's a little bit more uncertainty with some of these spots, especially on the back end with some of the injuries they're doing this week. But certainly these more unproven guys might be, a lot more talented than what Texas has got. And so I think there's a little bit of certainty on the Texas side you feel good about. Honestly, for me, what it comes down to is, do you trust Quinn Ewers to get the job done in this game? And I think this is really a defining moment for him. Not that it affects the Big 12 championship or anything like that, but I think there's a lot of really good things going on around him. He's the one that has to be composed and has to be accurate and has to make it through this game. Obviously, has to play 4 quarters, and he's got to be the guy that makes the difference. Because Texas is going to have trouble with Jalen Milroe, and I think Bama's going to get theirs. I think it's going to take a pretty impressive performance by Quinn Ewers to pull this off.
Max, you guys went to Ann Arbor for the next edition episode of The Official Visit. You went to Zingerman's, a place since I saw that movie, was it the 5-Year Engagement with Jason Segel?
5-Year Engagement.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he worked there. And ever since I've seen that, I'm like, I've got to get to this deli. What did you have at Zingerman's?
We got a little bit of everything. We've got the Reuben, we got pastrami, we've got latkes, we got. We could have feasted there for days. Man. Like, that's one of those places that if you lived in town, how would you not go there every week and just fill up on bread and meats there, and sides were great. Like, it was a really impressive experience. That place could not have been more welcoming and hospitable for us in terms of filming our official visit episode. So yeah, that was, I would say that was probably the highlight of the trip for me. And I know that's like very well known. You go to Ann Arbor, you go to Zingerman's, but man, it lives up to the hype.
All right, Max, before I let you go, you're either going to enable my ego to grow here, or you're going to be able to like keep me where I need to be a functional football fan. Is FSU for real?
You know, Paul, when I filled out the SWA does like they have writers do like a top 16 every week.
Mm-hmm.
I put Florida State at number 2 this week.
Oh.
And maybe that's I don't think that's crazy just based on the accomplishment. I think that LSU will still end up being a really good team. I mean, how could you not be impressed by what Mike Norvell has built there and how quickly he's gotten that thing flipped? Obviously, it took a little bit of patience early on, but I mean, they've got real dudes now. They've got NFL players now. You look at the schedule, and you know it better than I do, but I don't really see that 2-3 game stretch on the schedule like they had a year ago, where you drop a bunch of games and kind of fall out of this stuff. I think, there's a couple games you circle as being challenging. Certainly, Duke is one of them now, but man, I don't see a ton of losses on that schedule right now. I think I'm pretty optimistic that Florida State is going to win a lot of games. Hopefully they can stay healthy and keep playing at that level. But certainly I think they are firmly in the playoff conversation one weekend, which is silly to say. But no, I think that's not just an overreaction to how bad Clemson was. I think Florida State's for real.
Yeah, look, if they can finally shake that Clemson monkey off their back in a couple weeks, then I think it's full speed ahead. I really do. I think that that's going to maybe build some confidence in that team that wasn't there before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, Max, enjoy Boulder. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye. There's Max Olson in Boulder. No Garrett. He will not make a stop for you. We're not going to see him for a while anyway. So,
dang.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the other thing. Think about Boulder and Deion Sanders. You put those two things together, outside of capital crimes, what's illegal in Colorado?
Not much.
Okay. And so now you have, I cannot say this enough. And then I said it the other day on the Triple Option, which runs 1 to 2 every day here. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, but just doing that little podcast for a little while. But I said it the other day, Deion Sanders in 2015 would not be a college head coach.
No.
Because the rules were not set up for Deion to be able to flourish. And they needed to move some things out of the way. And I don't even think the transfer portal is the one. I mean, that helps. But name, image, and likeness for Deion Sanders is a huge thing, right?
Yes.
And being able to promote athletes, promote himself, and all that. But being in Colorado, where the vibe around that university is very chill anyway, it's a cool place to be, you have pulled out all the guardrails completely for Deion to there's no hurdles for him. It is just full speed ahead. Other than just natural, there are other really good coaches out there too. But when you were talking about a guy who can come in when you have to reinvent how you do this, and then you have someone like Dabo who refuses to reinvent how you do it, and then somebody who is not only willing to reinvent how you do it, but has probably always been for reinventing it, it is a perfect storm for Deion Sanders in college football.
It is, and it also reminds me a little bit of, and I know other programs have done this since, but I get the vibe with what Deion's building in Colorado to what Pete Carroll had in USC, where you're just bringing in people or you got eyeballs from famous people who they might not even be true football fans or, have played the game or something, but they're automatically drawn to that because of Deion and everything it brings. Even the fact, the uniforms right the other day, I didn't even realize, but the gold numbers, that's something they haven't done in a while. And just little things like that he's finding ways. Colorado gear all of a sudden is dope. It's amazing to look at. And yeah, it's just a unique environment there. And it's an ideal situation. I hope he gets it rolling in Boulder, man. It's a lot of fun. I don't remember college football having this much energy to probably the late 90s, mid 2000s, where it was just different. This is nostalgia for me.
Yeah, look, this is something else to see here. And again, he could not have done it. No. Remember, he got Dez kicked off of Oklahoma State for doing something now that that's legal, right?
Yep.
And it is those things that happen. Like Dez, unfortunately, a sacrificial lamb to the common sense of like, okay, if this guy's going to be a professional in less than 6 months, maybe he should. It's okay for him to sit down and talk to somebody.
Pretty common sense.
I mean, and yeah, maybe it's okay for him to, while he's already at Oklahoma State, he's not even being induced to go to Oklahoma State. He's about to leave there. Like, even if there was some kind of monetary deal, it's inducing him to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know? And
also thought you brought a good point the other day, like from a, like, as far as branding and stuff, how Deion can literally do things on a scale. Like, I think you nailed it perfectly with the Toyota reference.
Look,
where like that is stuff he can do that 95% of people can't pull off.
You know, I just know from, you know, when we're used to work, you know, you get logs and, you know, we knew the clients and everything. Like, there's local business, there's regional business, there's national business, right?
Yep.
And so when you get the logs, we'd get them from, at the time it was Learfield IMG. And so they sent us the logs, and you have some places that are clearly local here, you know, this local car dealership. Like, we have Allen Samuels.
Right.
And so Allen Samuels, but they're also, you know, they're Baylor sponsors also, but they have that, but that's regional. That's right here. That's local, regional kind of here. And then there's like the bigger region, which would be like a Gulf States Toyota. You know, that is that's a big conglomerate that owns a bunch of Toyota dealerships, but still they're not specifically Toyota. If Deion Sanders wanted to make a deal with Toyota, he wouldn't necessarily need to call up the Colorado Toyota dealership. He would ships all those owners and get that group together. His agent could just call Toyota's agency and say, hey, Deion is interested in this. What can you do? You know, and that changes the game in a way. And there's not many people who can do that. You know, like Saban could maybe do it, and not even him to the level of Deion. Kirby Smart, back-to-back national championships. Like, do you think Ford Trucks wants Kirby Smart to be their national spokesperson?
Yeah.
No, and he's a big deal. But Deion Sanders, I mean, he's been a national spokesperson since he was 21 years old. So
how much of that, like that's a good point right there. How much of that is his experience in navigating all of the celebrity at that age and everything that comes with it, and being cool and like most people have gotten out of that, but he stayed trendy with it. Like he's adapted so well through times to where he can promote himself on social media and his team like nobody else can do.
And he's been through it too. Maybe not to the level of some, but like he's had his problems.
Right.
So he's probably done everything. Like there's nothing that hasn't happened to Deion or happened around Deion. And I knew like when he was at Jackson State and he like walked in and said, okay, well, we need this and this. You know, oh, I made this deal with this company. They're going to give us suits for all our guys to go on a plane. Oh, hey, look at Pepsi's doing all our drinks now or whatever. Well, I don't know who it was, but like they went from having nothing, you know, like one machine that like was at, like, oh, you got that machine in your building, like
it's got like some lukewarm quick kicks.
I know the Baylor kids know this because there's probably like a vending machine in one of their main buildings that seemingly the person before you always gets the last drink in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of how it was. That's what it looked like at Jackson State was like, oh, well, I know that this guy's going to get his drink, but there's no way I'm getting mine.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as his pops out, all the lights go orange, and then you have to wait for the guy to come back. That's kind of how it was. Deion, in like a short amount of time, was like, boom, here's this. And that was at Jackson State. And he was just able to do that by saying, hey, Deion Sanders wants this here. So, you know, what he's doing there is really unbelievable. And I don't know if he's going to win one single national title. I have no idea.
Very doubtful.
I have no idea. I mean, he might. It's hard. Like, it's really hard to do. There are programs. Look, Oregon this week, with as much cool vibe as there is around Oregon, you would think that they have competed for and won multiple football titles.
Well, I think that goes back to their marketing too.
Because it's hard, right? That's my point is it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? So it's hard to do. So, you know, Deion, though, in a time where the game needed to be changed and is going through as much flux as it's ever been, can be that kind of it's not even an agent of chaos because everything he's doing is legal. But the guy who's not, he doesn't feel any kind of way about like, oh, well, they didn't allow this when I was in school. Like, that's part of the problem I think a lot of coaches have.
Yeah.
I think a lot of fans have it. You know, you read the chat room, they're like, well, you know, this guy's doing it the right way. Like, well, the right way, there's no right way anymore. Like, there's nothing. If a guy does it with a bunch of NIL, I'm sorry, that's not illegal. The only difference is that between his school and your school is his might have more money on hand than yours does.
Yeah.
That's it. So, like, you're mad at cash. That's what you're mad at. And look, I spent earlier today mad at cash. We're all constantly mad at cash. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around. But, yeah, I just think he's the right guy at the right time. And I think Matt Rule, like, coming into this game just on the other side of it, like, that's the right guy for Nebraska, in my opinion, or the right kind of coach, and we'll see if it works out. Sometimes it's well above the coach what problems they have, but it appears that they are addressing things directly as opposed to just trying to fall back into who they were, which is what they did a long time. But now he runs up against this in week 2, and I don't know if this is going to be a fair assessment of where they are at this point in the season.
I don't think it will necessarily. I feel like they're a team that's still going to win their fair share, but when it comes down to a game like Saturday, the atmosphere and everything, I don't trust Sims to get Nebraska the win, especially on the road. But as far as like what Matt Rule is doing, yeah, I think he's the perfect guy to go in and rebuild and establish what Nebraska has meant to college athletics. And I think it really starts with his, and why they, one of the main reasons why they hired him was his connection to Texas. I mean, once Nebraska went to the Big Ten, they lost all their recruiting ability in the state. Now he comes in, he's got excellent ties with all the Texas High School Coaches Association, so it's going to be a different type of build, and he's going to be able to navigate the transfer portal as well, but it's going to be two totally different schemes that ultimately probably have the same results for both programs.
Yeah, so, yeah, I just think, you know, and I know some of the people got confused in the chat room. I'm sorry that you did. They came in late. I was talking about Dion and how he's here at the right time, and he can do things that he's just got a background that no other football coach really has.
No, none whatsoever.
And so it's just he couldn't have done it 7-8 years ago. He could have done it 5 years ago almost. Like, seriously. Like,
yeah.
It is so crazy that this all kind of happened at once in college football. When we come back, we head to Miami. Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. He will help us look into the Aggies and how much hype to buy into them. Has Bobby Petrino fixed everything? It's only been 1 week. We'll see. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. We head down to Miami where Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com joins us now. And Olin, I know that it was only week 1, but just numbers-wise, A&M's offense did not do that against an FBS opponent all of last year. So that alone should create way more optimism than maybe even people thought going into this year for that offense.
Well, you're right. A&M scored more points offensively in the first half than they did in any game last year. So that's progress. And I think there was a lot of cautious optimism anyway because, again, A&M had so many injuries, B, so many young guys, C, played so many close games that you felt like there was a good chance that they would make, a step forward. And then you bring in Bobby Petrino, and there was no question that he was calling the plays, but he called them well. And guys like who were freshmen are now sophomores. Guys like Connor Wigman, Evan Stewart, Noah Thomas. Those guys played really well. And it's right. You could say, well, it's just New Mexico, and that's true. But last year it was just Sam Houston, and it was just UMass, and it was just Appalachian State. So I think after that opening performance, there's still reason for cautious optimism.
So this week they head down to Miami. That's a team that is in a different part of a rebuild than maybe some of the other rebuilding teams. They're in year 2 under Mario Cristobal. They had a nice showing last week against Miami, Ohio. Again, kind of the same thing as A&M. I think the biggest question, Olin, that remains to be seen for this one is A&M's been recruiting with Jimbo Fisher, these guys, for a few years now. The kind of athletes that people think can eventually win the SEC if they get everything right. Miami has not been doing that for very long. Now the transfer portal helps you shorten that window a little bit, but do you think this Miami team is going to be able to go athlete for athlete with A&M?
Not athlete from athlete, but I think they're certainly good enough to beat A&M. I mean, last year's game was a touchdown difference. A&M won by 8, I think it was, 17-9. They brought in a center who is highly regarded from Central Florida. They brought in a guard from Alabama. They've got a 5-star, maybe the number 1 tackle prospect in the last recruiting class. It's not number 1, number 2, to both of the offensive line where they felt like they needed help the most. So I know that by listening and reading the Miami media, they feel like being able to run the football against A&M is a big key for them to win. And, they have that optimism based, primarily on the guys they brought in from the transfer portal. So, to your point in question, yeah, you don't have to wait as long to rebuild as you used to if you can score big in the transfer portal, and Miami did very well.
Would you say there's not a full culture reset, but a little miniature culture reset this year for this team, and that they had to do given they brought in a lot of big time freshmen in that class? It was very highly touted, but then they had to send a lot of them almost immediately right out the door. Those things have happened. Is there a Control-Alt-Delete, for lack of a better term, going on with A&M, at least in the locker room culturally, making sure everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of, or at least they think there's some addition by subtraction. Look, there's no doubt that a guy like Chris Marshall is a very talented player, but sometimes you wonder if the off-field antics, are worth the talent. And you saw he transferred to Ole Miss and then was dismissed at Ole Miss a couple of months later, right? Smoke Bowie, he wasn't a problem here, but he decided to go back home to Georgia, and he's been dismissed from the team there. So I think the issues, Denver Harris left. He's at LSU, and he got suspended for one game already. But he's going to be back. And gosh, after that opening, they need some help in the secondary. But so I think that there were some guys that may have been more about what the team can do for me than what I can do for the team. I don't think that's limited to Texas A&M, though. I think it's just Texas A&M's recruiting class was so celebrated that it gets magnified. But I do think there's by talking to the players and some coaches, I think there is a different attitude and the feeling that everybody's on the same page and working toward a common goal rather than out for their own thing. I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to have to suspend any players for sneaking out the hotel and going down to parties at Prairie View or vaping in their uniforms in the locker room on the road. I don't think they're going to have those issues anymore.
I mean, and the thing is when you say it out loud, it just sounds even more ridiculous of what you're doing as an athlete. And everybody has these problems, like you said. It's like every college football program essentially is going to catch a rash of this. It just depends on how bad that rash spreads season to season, right?
Right, and it was pretty bad last year at A&M. At Georgia, every time they go on a drive, they're afraid they're going to get pulled over.
Yeah,
they got to slow down the offense. Everybody has their issues, but A&M's, of course, were magnified last year. Because the recruiting class was so celebrated, and then B, because you just mentioned how ridiculous some of the issues were. So when you have some guys that are involved in some of the things that we're involved with, and some of them were involved in multiple incidents, same guys, you're probably better off, no matter how talented they are, letting them go somewhere else and trying to get their act together somewhere else. Which, by the way, I hope all those guys do. You don't want to write a guy off for doing some stupid things when he's 18 and 19 years old.
Yes. We're all varying degrees of stupid, when we're that age, right? I mean,
right.
Even the smartest ones are, we're all still kind of stupid at that time in our life. Connor Wigman showed some flashes last year, obviously, of what he could be, a very highly recruited player anyway. This whole offseason with Bobby Petrino I know that there was a quarterback competition because that's what Jimbo has always done, but he's been the guy since the end of last year. They didn't really have that so much going in with Haynes King even a year ago because they were a little bit worried about his health, and that kind of proved that again, and they went through it. How much difference does that make it that they have known that Connor is the guy from the time the season ended last year, more or less?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said that you can have a little more confidence. Look, for years there was a lot of hope on based on Haynes King coming from what we were told, because let's face it, we didn't see him play that much. But with Connor, you've seen it. You've seen him start his very first college game and throw 4 touchdown passes against Ole Miss. You've seen play really well, even though he didn't have to throw a lot in that win over LSU. And he had 2 touchdown passes in those games, and he was very poised and very accurate. And then he comes back and he opens his first game this year and he throws 5 touchdown passes. So you've seen him play well. So it's just now a matter, is he good? Yes. How good? And can he get better every week like you hope he does? And if he progresses, I think he could be a very, the feeling here among a lot of people is that that potentially, and that's such a dangerous word, but potentially he's A&M's best quarterback since Johnny Manziel. And admittedly, that's setting the bar, kind of low, because there hasn't been a lot of great quarterback play. Kellen Mond had one really, really good year. He was solid career, but one really, really good year. And Trevor Knight came down here for a year and was really good. But other than that, the quarterback play has been spotty. But there's a lot of expectations about Connor, and some of that's based on the potential that he brought here, but a lot of it's based on what you've actually seen him do.
How much of a test, though? I mean, last week, again, it's New Mexico, so the defense didn't really have to hit on all cylinders, but they brought in, that's one of the areas on defense. They brought in Tony Grimes, and where Jimbo got into the transfer portal a little deeper than he has before over there on that side of the ball. Is this this is their first real test, though, right? Of how much that helped it, and because they have a lot of stud recruits over there, but adding those transfers in to see them gel for DJ Durkin, this is the first one, right?
Yeah, I think this is the first big test for DJ. Look, last week, we all know it was an open book test, and they passed it, but you're supposed to pass an open book test, even though they failed some of the last year. So, look, A&M, first of all, was one of the worst teams in the country against the run last year. They limited New Mexico to 91 yards. I think it was on 33 carries, and 27 of those came in on one carry with third stringers out on the field. But again, it's New Mexico. Now you got Miami that we talked about before. They fortified their offensive line through the transfer portal. They think they can run on anybody. Maybe they can. They've got Henry Parrish that they brought in from Ole Miss last year. So he played for Miami against A&M last year. And he's a guy that can, go 80 yards if you're not careful. I think he had a 60, maybe a 40 or 60 yard run against A&M when he was at Ole Miss. And they had a big time freshman kid that they're really excited about, big, powerful guy. So I know, like I said, reading and hearing what the media here is saying, they feel like the key for Miami is their ability or whatever success they have running the football, and they think they can do it. And A&M looked really good against the run last week. So what? It was in Mexico. But, they weren't bad last year against LSU. Again, they were playing with a whole bunch of freshman starters last year, and those guys, they're playing in a grown man league as 18-year-olds, and maybe some of them had just turned 19. But now they've got a full year of experience, a full year of growth behind them, weight training and all those things that we all see guys make a big jump. Walter Nolan actually lost weight. He's down to for like 320 to 290 and really quick and looks good. So are they going to be better in their first big test? We'll see.
Olin, just your thoughts on Texas and Alabama as an outside observer to this.
I watched the game last year, and I thought Texas might have gotten hosed on a play that looked like it might have been a safety, and then it still came down to a field goal, right, in the last 10 seconds.
Yeah,
and that was with Bryce Young and with Will Anderson and a lot of other guys. So I don't see any reason to think it's going to be not going to be a real close, hard-fought battle again. I think, and I'm not around Alabama all the time, but I think if you look at Alabama and you're looking for a reason to be concerned about that team beyond quarterback, I think you might look at the secondary, and what do you know? Texas, just strength of their team may be the receivers. So that's a matchup that may be favoring Texas. And I think Ewers was throwing the ball pretty well against them last year before he got hurt. So I think Alabama will win. I think it's hard to win in Tuscaloosa, even though the Aggies have done it. It's been a long time, and they almost did it last year, but almost doesn't cut it. So I think Alabama will win, but I'm thinking that I'd be surprised if it's not a close game. I'll put it that way.
All right, Owen, enjoy Miami. Make sure Nuno takes you. You tell Nuno to take you to nice places, okay?
Well, he knows his way around. There's no doubt about it. That's the advantage of being Miami with a native Cuban.
Yes, absolutely. You tell Nuno, he's not. I don't want him to save money. Like, this place is good, but this place is cheaper. Nuno needs to treat you right, Olin. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Lucci's paying for that. So
okay.
I'm sure Nuno will have absolutely no conscience when it comes to what we're going to spend.
All right, Olin, enjoy. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. For those of you who don't get the reference, David Nuno is over there at Texags. He's I don't know his title. But I've known David Nuno for quite a long time. He was here in Waco. He and I have hosted shows together over the time. He's been all over the place. He's Cuban, so he's there in Miami, in North Cuba, essentially. I mean, it is just like we're North Mexico here. Oh, yeah. Miami is very much North Cuba.
Do you have like a spot in Miami, like you got to go to, like a certain spot you got to hit up?
They're like the super famous ones. Like what I don't know about Miami is the hole in the wall spots, because I didn't grow up in Miami. I grew up like going to Miami, and sometimes begrudgingly, just because when you grow up in Florida, like Miami, like they have kind of it's a different vibe than everywhere else.
Right. Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't know if that, but I will say we were down there in 2020, right before the world almost ended. For the Super Bowl, there was a lot of places I hadn't been to before, like neighborhoods that have been, they're different now than they were in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I hadn't been to Miami since I think 2008 or 9.
Right.
Because my buddy got married down there, and it was a total waste of time and money because I got divorced right after that. But
it happens.
I say that, and if he's watching, he knows he feels exactly that same way. Had a good time, but that was the last time I'd been there. So a place can change a lot, and it had. I like Miami, and now I'm older, so I probably appreciate parts of it more that I would have never gone to in my 20s.
Definitely.
Than I do. So yeah, there are parts of it, that was like, it's cool. Like, look. Here's the thing. Go down to Little Havana and get yourself some Cuban food. Like and it's not just Cuban food. There's like all kind of different, it's so many different cultures in Miami and so many different great things that it is a really cool place to go. Now it has its problems and the things that still bother me. It's never going to change. But yeah, I had a blast. Q and I had a good time there when we were there. So, yeah, it was good. Smokey was there for a couple days. Less that time, like that was a weird trip for him. Like we had to kind of cram into one Airbnb in a place that and this was so Miami. I'll go to break right after this, but we went there for the Super Bowl, and we always get Airbnbs when we go to Super Bowl. And so I found this place that was condos, and like they were just trying to be like, their goal was to be vacation rental condos.
Right.
It was a 2-bedroom. And it had a nice living area, but you put 4 people in that, and it got real quick. One of us is on an air mattress, 2 on beds, 1 on couch. Kind of a thing. Honestly, it was a little bit like a college spring break trip, like when you walk in the room. But Man and I had just kind of started dating then too, when I was in Miami, But yeah, it was. We had a good time. We was in a neighborhood I'd never really hung out in before, which for the life of me now, I can't remember. It wasn't that far of an Uber ride to the convention center. So yeah, it was great. I mean, it's a fun place to go. Now look, I am, from a different part. I'm from Fort Myers. I went to school in Tallahassee. I lived in Tampa. Like, Miami is not it's like, if you had to ask me to rank those 4 places, Miami would come in 4th. But it's certainly ahead of other places in Florida that I do not like to go. So
I want to go to Miami, like, for the cultural food, like you're saying, to get a Cuban. And, like, I want to go check out Ernest Hemingway's house down in the Keys. I think that'd be pretty cool. That's about all I care to do in Florida.
Yeah, I went to South Beach when I was 21. And even 21-year-old me who loved to, like, you know,
get down,
to go, like, get out amongst them a little bit, was you'd walk into a place and be like, all right, that's $30. I'm like,
nope.
To get in here? Look at me. You think I have $30 just to give you to walk through a door? No, that's my beer budget for the night. You point me to the place where I can get 2 for $1, sir, and then they point you well off of South Beach.
Right, yeah.
Like, you point me to
down with the peasants.
You point me to Dollar Wells all night long. That's the place I can go to in 2001. $30 to get in. Oh, Carmen Electra might be there? Big whoop. I don't have Carmen Electra money.
They tried to do that to us in Cancun with, I think it was Senior Frogs, where the cast of Road Rules or one of them was there, and you had to pay extra to go out back, and you might be able to get seen on TV. I was like, nah, that ain't for me. I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, you'll be on Road.
I'll pass on that one.
A background extra on Road Rules. Maybe. It's not like it's live. I mean, they're going to cut it up. Like, oh, look, there's my leg.
We're just going to take all our money.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, when we come back, let's dive a little bit into this Oregon State and Washington State thing and their now pending lawsuit against the rest of the Pac-12. This is 365 Sports.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bar, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning vent. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back in 365 Sports here on your Friday. Sam Bradshaw and Josh Neighbors coming up in the next hour. Did Garrett's gigantic Jolly Green giant ass just almost run into the camera? Oh my gosh.
You know, we just kind of live with that. We love him. So we take the flaws with all the good stuff.
He's very tall. Now look, here's the thing. I'm not tall and I bump my head on things that I should not bump my head on all the time.
How?
I don't know. It just happens.
Is that like your superpower, Paul?
I guess.
It's a really random superpower.
Yeah, it is.
That's like something from Deadpool 2.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, who's the guy? Well, I guess he's back. The guy who didn't have any superpowers, who was just there.
What was his name? Shoot.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that movie in forever.
Yeah. But anyway. I mentioned this before the break. Oregon State and Washington State have filed a complaint against the Pac-12, a legal one, in case you were wondering, not just with HR. Seeking an emergency temporary restraining order to protect what the school sees as an imminent and existential threat to the future of the conference, which there is not a future of the conference, really. With the intent of exploring opportunities to sustain the Pac-12, the schools are asking for a board meeting of all 12 members Wednesday to be canceled and for legal clarity to be given on who has voting rights to control the future of the league. With 10 of the conference's 12 members announcing their departures within the past 18 months, Pac-12 bylaws indicate that the presidents at Oregon State and Washington State, the only members that have not given notice of withdrawal, should constitute the league's board of directors. The legal filing by the two schools and its presidents was made in state court in Whitman County, Washington, which is where Washington State is. They request for a hearing on the temporary restraining order on Monday, which would give clarity before any scheduled meeting 2 days later. Let's see. At the heart of the dispute is the distribution of Pac-12's remaining assets. The filing states that the Pac-12 ended the 2022 fiscal year with $42.7 million in total net assets, a figure that does not include the equity value of the conference's ownership of the Pac-12 network, which I would assume is going to go away.
I would assume the same.
Yes. So, and for the 2021-22 financial year, the Pac-12 network reported the revenue of $117 million and expenses of $77 million. So there's other revenue streams and all that, but basically what this boils down to is if they want to rebuild the Pac-12, they want to do it with this money in the kitty, obviously. And there's still money that they're probably going to owe to Comcast and all that. So they're trying to maybe rebuild the Pac-12 brand and keep that Autonomy 5 with them, which I don't know if the other Autonomy 4 will say, oh, well, you just added 8 teams from the Mountain West. How does that make you an autonomous conference now? But again, it all boils down to the money. And we wondered, like, where does this leave them and who's in charge? Because what's George Kliavkoff's job right now?
Yeah, didn't we talk about this last Friday?
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Like, what is his exact job? Like, if you had to say, like, what is his job?
Sit there, twiddle your thumbs.
Like, what do you do when the conference is falling apart, other than the administrative tasks of finishing out this season? Because he doesn't have a media deal to negotiate now. There's really not going to be, outside of this, any interconference squabbles. Are Oregon and Arizona State going to get into it about some kind of rule? No. What's the point of it? They're going to just go their separate ways in June next year, right? So what's there to do? And here, now it's probably George Kliavkoff is going to have to navigate this legal mess here, which was coming. You knew it was. Because you're Oregon State and Washington State, you have to do whatever you can to to hold on to what you got, because wherever you go and whatever happens, there's going to be less money for you at the end of that rainbow.
Oh, yeah, you have to. And sitting here as a normal human being looking at it, I think most people would say, yeah, of course, Oregon State and Washington State should, be in complete control of what happens to the Pac-12 and therefore the Pac-12's assets now. But that's never how it was going to work.
Yeah. No, this is so unique to see how it's going to break down. And what is the value of the Pac-12 networks when there's no Pac-12 to put on it? Like, you're essentially selling it off for parts. Who do you sell it to? What does it become? I don't know. Like, there are things like, again, if the Big 12 broke up, a couple years ago when all this happened, that's not something they would have had to worry about. They don't have that asset. Yeah. The Pac-12 has it and they own it. Look, if the Big 10 broke up, Fox owns the Big 10 network. They could turn it into something else, like that. But the Pac-12 network completely on its own, owned by that conference, are you just, after this year, are you selling off cameras and satellite trucks and other things?
Possibly. You could start looking at like, well, hey, who's trying to fill the gap, if you can even say it's a gap that they leave? Like maybe the CW is what comes to mind. Is they're working to get into sports broadcasting, so maybe that's a buyer for some of the stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, when we come back, Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com, breaks down Utah and what Baylor has ahead of them, and then Josh Neighbors. He is on Crystal Ball College Football, Neighborhood Watch. We will have him. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Save big during the Labor Day sales event at Allen Samuels. Get a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months with no payments for 90 days at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends. Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1111. 7161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Hope you guys enjoyed that prolonged music bed. I'm going to blame intern Owen for getting me distracted there, even though it was not at all his fault. But look, he's going to get blamed for something. Sam, have you ever started a job and then on your first day, like put your foot in your mouth in a way you didn't understand or expect?
Can't say that I have, unfortunately.
Yeah. So before we get into this, I'm going to tell you a story. So Owen, our intern, started last week. Great kid, a good kid. I don't know if he's great yet. I mean, right now he's in good status. One of the first things he brought up, he's like, man, Florida State's overrated. They're garbage. Not knowing that the guy who just hired him and brought him in to be an intern was an alum of that institution. So I'm gonna keep him in the hard time zone until Florida State takes an L this year, which I hope doesn't happen. But you know, who am I kidding? All right, Sam. So last week was kind of a mess for Baylor in a lot of different ways. How much of that mess is reparable in a week?
Thanks for having me on. And reparable in a week is an interesting timetable for it. I think you will see a much better executing Baylor. The first 4 drives that the team put together last week, and remember, Aranda said in the post game that they were having trouble keying a lot of their blocking schemes off how Texas State was lining up. There were a few things that kind of surprised them. And I think over the first 4 drives, they had around like 55 yards total or 54 yards total. From then on, they averaged 55 yards a drive. So clearly the offense found something to move the ball after that. So I do think you'll see a lot better performance out of them, and that's even with the blocking looking extremely sloppy. That's even with the protection issues they had. That's even with them competing with the Fiesta Bowl for how many times can you hurt yourself with false start. You know, it's offensively, I expect them to be better, and you're talking about Grimes and Mateos, who came in and took the very struggling 2020 offensive line, and in one offseason got them competent in the wide zone, to the point that running game was able to lead their way to the Big 12 title. I'm not expecting that, but I expect them to get them competent at the very least. Now, defensively is a little bit of a different story, because you saw guys like Gabe Hall and TJ Franklin who have been dudes in the defensive line and have been able to hold up against some of the better offensive linemen in the Big 12, just playing way too high, getting pushed back. And you also saw the fact that you lost your top 3 nose tackles from last year and your top anchoring, heavy against the run, 2-gapping D tackle was out injured. The replacements inside had a really rough night. And to be fair, that's a decent offensive line. You're basically taking 3 starters plus the most promising pro upside guy from a FCS team that was a play away from playing for it all last year with the best offense in the FCS. And the other guy was an Oklahoma transfer. So you weren't exactly against the scout team, but you have to be better. I'm expecting them to be a little bit better up front. Just pad level alone and technique alone and getting Boykins back will help that. And it'll hopefully help them limit how often those safeties are in obvious one-on-one coverage.
So they're playing the one team that you don't want to, have that get-right game come against, because Utah is going to be very fundamentally sound, but they also do have a week of film on the quarterbacks. I don't think Cam Rising is going to play in this game. It doesn't appear that that's the case unless everything we've heard is a lie. But how do you see them attacking Utah and stopping Utah from attacking them?
Well, on each side of the ball, Utah's got really good coordinators, and they've had them for a while. They've got continuity in the program from the head coach all the way down through the staff, and it really shows in their recruiting and player development. Like Phil Bennett came on and talked to you guys. They've got a bunch of guys where you're like, where on earth did they get this kid? But they're good. On the defensive side, you're going to see somewhat of a similar tactic style that you saw last week against Texas State. So Baylor at least has some film on what to go fix, because you're going to see a fair amount of man coverage. You're going to see a lot of blitzing. You're going to see a lot of smaller, fast guys that want to live in your backfield. This isn't as much of a read and react defense as it is an attacking one. So I think there's the potential for Baylor to show a lot of what it's learned over the last week there for a more directly applicable matchup schematically. They've got to keep Sawyer clean, and they've got to find a way to just get those guys blocked. I think Dominic Richardson showed the ability to get downhill and fall forward if you give him just the bare minimum amount of blocking you need. So I do think if they can just get to a basic level of proficiency, they can potentially extend some drives and make it a little more difficult on the Utes. And then on the other side of the ball, Utah has a really, really good offensive coordinator who was at Vanderbilt when Baylor had that shootout with them in Houston in the bowl game. And what he's really good at is designing plays that stress the defense, but it stresses your assignments. It creates space for his guys. It makes everything look the same. But it's not we're going to stretch you from sideline to sideline at tempo that they faced last week. This is not an offense, and particularly without Rising in there, this is not an offense that wants to sit there and throw slot fades at you. This is an offense that wants to run the ball, do play action, have the wide receiver fly sweep, control the back side pursuit on you. And they want to hit play action. They want to use controlled West Coast passing concepts. And it's a style of offense that is less matchup dependent, but it puts their guys in favorable spots. So, for instance, like if they were to face somebody like an Alabama or a Georgia, it would probably scale better than what you saw happen to Tennessee when they ran into Alabama, for instance, or Georgia, I should say, where the talent on the individual matchups was much more of a focus than it would be with, say, Utah, for instance.
So, what do you expect Baylor to attack them with a backup quarterback in? Do you think it'll be much different than if Shapen was playing?
I think systematically Baylor's going to be keeping the nuts and bolts of what they're doing pretty similar. But I do think Sawyer opens up things with the quarterback run game in a way that Shapen doesn't. He's a little bigger, a little faster. He gives you the ability to do that. And in 2021, the last time anyone running the reliable, violent offense faced Utah and Morgan Scalley's defense, Utah really struggled both with the quarterback read option where Jaron Hall, who frankly is a lot faster than Sawyer, was able to make some really backbreaking plays on that. But they also had a little quarterback draw RPO series where it was either quarterback draw or he could swing past the running back that hurt them for a good stretch in the second half as well. So I expect that to be a part of the game plan. But really with Baylor, it's going to be a lot more about what are you doing to handle your end of the business, because you have to get on your blocks. You have to get off of blocks. You have to make sure that your assignment's sound. No penalties, things like that, because this Utah offense is an absolute machine when they're fully healthy. But you have two difference makers in Cam Rising and Brant Keithy, who runs like a really quick slot receiver, but he's 230, 240 pounds and can block for you at tight end. Those two being out changed the game for them. I mean, after the initial opening bomb that they hit Florida with, that Florida completely misplayed, they averaged under 20 yards a drive against Florida. This is an offense that's usually in the 44 yards per drive range over the last 2-3 years. So they're definitely not to the level of offensive efficiency they usually are. And I think if Baylor can get a lead on them and make Barnes throw, they may not be as resilient as they would be. And they may not be as resilient for a comeback the way that a lot of the wide open offenses Baylor faces in the Big 12 might be.
Sam, do you think that the heat will affect Utah the way that fans are hoping it will?
I think it's an advantage, the fact that you deal with it every day and they don't. But much like somebody going to elevation and playing, or any number of other weather related considerations, you have to play well enough for it to be something on the margins that's going to make that much of a difference. For instance, on offense, you have to extend drives. You have to stay on the field so they actually have to play, because nobody's going to get tired if they only have to play 45 to 50 snaps on defense just because it's a few degrees hotter. But if you're out there for 80 snaps, all of a sudden it makes a world of difference. And in particular, if they're able to make you run all over the place, play after play, it really adds up on you at that point. You know, the Baylor team, the level of offensive line execution that you saw early in the game against Texas State, if that happens, heat won't matter at all. But if Baylor can put together long drives and really lean on that defensive line, it will absolutely begin to start mattering. Because, you know, Utah's without a couple of key defensive linemen. One of their D tackle starters and one of their D end starters, maybe even two, might be out. And when that rotation is a little thinner, that heat can potentially pile up on you.
How long will, I mean, say they struggle for the first month. Do you think that Baylor would you say that Baylor, because right now it might be too early to say they've got a talent deficiency, but do you worry that they might?
I go back and forth, and it depends on the position. You know, with the defensive guys, you saw those D linemen that are returning at defensive end for them. You've seen them play much, much better than they did last week. So I don't necessarily think all of it on defense is a talent thing. It could just be you haven't been hitting enough in fall practice and you got caught flat-footed and guys were sloppy, you know, or it could be a sign of talent issues. You know, that's going to be something that's not necessarily the number of games, but rather, are you seeing a consistent trend? And are you seeing it on film where guys are actually taking the right steps? This isn't, a linebacker's head spinning rather than his actual talent level that he'll eventually reach. Is it something where he's hesitant and playing slow, or is he just slow? You know, is it something where the defensive line is playing with poor pad level, or do they literally just not have the ability to anchor? We'll see that over time. And I think this team is a lot better than they showed last week. And, you know, you're never as good as you think you are when you win big, and you're never as bad as you think you are when you have a disappointment like that. But they have to play much, much better. The fan base is understandably very mad. You know, the last two games they went out there after they had a disappointing end to the regular season last year. They went to the coldest bowl game of all time and saw an uninspired performance. And then they came back and everybody sat in the hot heat and sweat sitting in the stadium, watching them play uninspired ball against a Texas State program that nobody envisioned them losing to.
Yeah, when you put it like that, Sam, the swing in weather, but the swing in attitude hadn't changed. That is a little bit troubling. Looking forward,
right? Because if you go back after the Texas Tech game last year, Baylor had a realistic chance, had they won the right combination of games, of going to the Big 12 title. Mm-hmm. Literally everybody in their way was on their schedule. TCU, K-State, Texas. All three of them. And then they come out uninspired against K-State. They let TCU come back on them, and then they let Texas come back on them. And then they have the last two games. So people are understandably frustrated, and a win over Utah would do wonders just for the state of the program, the state of the fan base. It would be a sign that they can get it back on track, because right now the fan base is understandably not very happy.
Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com. Sam, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.
There you go, Sam Bradshaw. And Jack, you were at field level last week. Taken, right?
Yeah, I was.
You didn't just tell me you were there and then, go play video games?
No, I've got the pictures to prove it.
All right. I mean, just saying, like, anybody could have done that. You're not in
anybody?
No.
Anybody?
No, you sent me a picture of one of our former interns, CJ,
yep.
who's working for Texas State right now. But you were down there, and this was such a weird, unexpected game. Like I expected Texas State to like throw a lot of good shots at Baylor. I did not expect Baylor to kind of turn and be like, well, that was pretty good, and then not do anything about it. Like that was the thing that was kind of surprising. Did you get a vibe at any point during the game that like just the balloon was flat?
I mean, I've honestly gotten accustomed to the balloon feeling flat from Baylor, and then they go out there and they get the job done. You know, like it's not a team full of guys who are like crazy hyped about this or that. They do take on some of the identity of their head coach, and like they're just really even keeled. They're there to do their thing, and normally that means perform on the football field. It just this time they went out there and they weren't performing on the field. Like you don't have to have energy. You don't have to be a really show me kind of guy to win, but that kind of masked it for me, as I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think, then they've got a really interesting test coming up on Saturday because Utah is very fundamentally sound. Yes, they don't have Cam Rising. Yes, they don't have their tight end. Like those things that's good in Baylor's corner. I just think that it's those little things that get you beat. Dave Aranda knows this. It's the little things that get you beat a lot of the time, and Utah does the little things really well. That's why they can be without so many players last week against Florida and physically manhandle them.
The reason this game scares me to death as a Baylor alum is because Utah reminds me of Kansas State. And we all saw what Kansas State came into Waco and did to a Baylor team and a Baylor fan base that was really excited for that game. Like, there was a groundswell to make the administration make it a blackout game.
Yeah.
They got that done. People showed up. People were ready to go. And then Baylor went and laid a literal goose egg.
Yeah.
31-0, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So Utah program that...
Owen and Emery are over there, like, reliving their trauma.
I was at that game too.
I know. But it was funny. Like, you said the score, and both of them simultaneously. Here, give me a tight shot. Let me do a little acting here. Yeah, that was both of them at the same time. They're not looking at each other. Emery's looking at his computer screen. Owen's just like, now he's traumatized.
Yeah.
So yeah, both of them were.
And so Utah being a program like that like they look at the little things. They care a lot about the little things. They're going to go in there and they're going to grind it out. Like that's what Baylor wants to be. But they got outdone at their own game last year by Kansas State, and it looks like Utah should be able to do the same thing to them this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is weird because there are a lot of there's high pressure week 2 games. I was trying to do a top 5, because the top 5, like Clemson plays Charleston Southern, they're going to look probably fine this week. But
real quick, Scotty B said it was 31-3.
3, okay.
Just felt like a goose egg.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. We forgive Jack for forgetting the rando field goal that snuck in there. I think wasn't the field goal sometime in the second quarter, and then it was just.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because when it happened, it was like, okay, well, they got a field goal. Stop here, stop there. Like, they're back in this thing, and then it was just Deuce Vaughn and Will Howard. That might have been Will Howard's first. Or no, did Adrian Martinez play and then Will Howard come in?
Adrian Martinez started. Matt Jones, I believe, because I got video of this. It was a third or fourth and short. Matt Jones jumped over the line, landed on Martinez's leg, and Martinez did not return.
Yes, that's right. So essentially, the Will Howard era.
And that was early on in the game.
The Will Howard era became the Will Howard era in full.
Yes.
In that moment.
Because we all knew, he's been banged up this year. And frankly, going into that game, I was like, I hope Martinez starts because I think that gives Baylor a better chance. He started. Yeah. Baylor knocked him out. Not trying to knock him out, but
all right. Jack, what's your most intriguing game of the weekend?
Most intriguing game of the weekend? Oh man. I'm drawing a blank right now. But I guess I have to go with Rule versus
Dion. Okay.
Just the storylines abound. We, being here in Waco, Texas, have had plenty of experience with Matt Rule. So we know those storylines better than most. So maybe that's what it is for me. But, I mean, I want to see if Dion can keep it rolling. I want to see an old Big 12 rivalry, old Big 8 rivalry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Emory, most intriguing game of the week. Tulane Ole Miss in Nolans. That's going to be rowdy. I think it'll be rowdy. It'll be fun.
Especially since it's on campus at Tulane.
Yeah,
which is a very interesting stadium.
Yeah. Jim Barnes, who used to be the volleyball coach of Baylor, was at Tulane, and a mutual friend of ours went, and his office overlooks the stadium. And my friend said Tulane's got a really cool kind of setup there for the football stadium. Owen, most intriguing game of the week. Tech and Oregon. Okay. All right. And both the guys on the couch over there are picking Tech.
Yeah, which is a bold move.
Jack and I are quacking.
I'm not even quacking. I do not buy Tech right now. Going into the season, I didn't buy their QB. That's where I drew the line. They go and they lay that dud up in Wyoming. I'm not buying them against a team that has an actual Heisman candidate on it.
Yeah. We'll see. I think it's going to be fun, though. I think it's going to be fun. I think that I'm going to go with Texas and Alabama because this could be, if Texas loses this game in a close game, obviously it doesn't affect how you feel about them being able to win the Big 12. They're still very much on that track. But if Texas wins this game, you can start thinking, could they do more than just win the Big 12?
Yeah.
Could they be in the CFP? But again, you got to get through not just this one, but the conference, which has not been easy for Texas for more than a decade now. So
yeah, and the thing that I think a lot of people might go to with that is you can look at any individual game in conference for Texas, and it's like, well, yeah, they should be the most talented team. They probably should win that game. You stack them up one after the other. It's like you have to get through that unscathed, or if you beat Bama, you can have one loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
2 losses in the Big 12, that probably knocks you out of the playoff right away.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll see. I don't look any of the games I pick, because I picked Colorado, I picked A&M, I picked Ole Miss, I picked Oregon, I picked Bama. Even with Texas playing Bama, and you know that I'm no person who's ever going to advocate for good things to happen in Austin, Texas, and I say that in jest. But no, I mean, I have no problem admitting I'm wrong on any of those things. I'm not going to die on any hills over here. Would it surprise me to see A&M go down to Miami and not be ready for that? Nope. Would it surprise me to see Texas roll into Bryant Denny and just have this, light bulb aha moment and beat them? Also no. Would not surprise me as much as it would in almost any other time period in my life that Tulane would win a home game against Ole Miss. But I just think Ole Miss probably has a little bit too much.
Yeah. What do you think of the Oklahoma State at Arizona State matchup?
I think Oklahoma, I don't know. I mean,
I have so many questions because I don't know if Oklahoma is going to be able to outscore them. Like that, it's Oklahoma State's offense versus Arizona State's defense to me.
Yeah.
That's the key there.
I'm curious to see Jaden Rashada week 2. They barely got out with their lives against, was it Southern Utah last week? Oklahoma State won, but I don't think that
it's just really interesting to me that
we know anything yet.
They're at Arizona State. I think that can make up some of the difference between those programs.
I know who Emory is rooting for because they were very mean to him when he was a little boy. Yeah. Emory doesn't care for the Pokes. They were mean to the young Emory. And if I saw that guy, I'd kick him right in the shins. It's right there. If that guy shows up here and yells at Emory, he's getting kicked in the shins.
Yeah, I'll grab the baseball bat.
I can kick pretty hard in the shins. You know what I mean? I don't want to
You're a kicker, not a puncher?
I don't want to maim him. I just want him to have a really bad day. like when he walks around, I want him to get like a Charlie horse. Like, it's a stupid guy kicked me in the shin.
Oh, man.
So, anyway, when we come back, Josh Neighbors, the Neighborhood Watch, Crystal Ball College Football. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
Usually you see his face on Zoom, but he's doing a high school football game tonight. So Josh Neighbors, from an undisclosed location, I don't want people to find you, Josh. You know, the people, there's a following happening because of the neighborhood watch. I don't want your fans just to show up and then you can't work tonight. So I won't tell them where you are. But this is a crazy week in college football coming up with Texas and Bama, Oregon and Texas Tech, Baylor and Utah, A&M and Miami, Colorado and Nebraska, like all these great games, especially coming off of last week. First of all, your thoughts on week one and some of the shaking out we saw, like Colorado big win, FSU big win, Clemson really embarrassing loss because Dabo Swinney can't get out of his own way.
Yeah, congratulations, Paul, on your Florida State and Seminoles. I mean, that was an unbelievable effort from them. I mean, I think it's almost lost on us the fact that it was 17-14 at halftime, right? Mm-hmm. That is kind of something I think we've already forgotten about. And I mean, I was wondering, hey, Mike Norvell, like, is this actually the truth? And
look, I always look at that blue chip ratio Bud Elliott has every single year, and I don't believe Florida State was on it this year unless I totally missed them on it, but they've done a great job with the transfers that they've gotten this year, and that was, just unbelievable job by him, and you spin it to Monday night, like at 24 hours later, and I don't know, I know it's overreaction, but I don't know how you don't say that there's a shifting of the guard in the ACC, because you think about how we've been calling out these issues for Clemson for a long time. The fact that the defensive line's been a big strength for them, the fact that they've had great wide receivers, but that seems to have dried up a little bit. And despite who their quarterbacks are, it hasn't really seemed to matter. They can't spin the ball down the field anymore. And so I think there is a massive power dynamic shifting in the ACC right before our very eyes. That Clemson run could be over. And they have great players, great resources, but that could be changing. And then obviously you mentioned in the Big 12. I had some people saying, "Oh, it was still a good week for the Big 12." No, it was not. 4 of the hateful 8, as we have called them, the 8 remaining Big 12 schools that will be in the new version of the league go down. West Virginia was expected, but you had TCU 20 to 21 point favorite, depending on where you looked. Baylor, somewhere in the neighborhood of a 4 touchdown favorite. They lose, and Texas Tech blows a 17 point lead, and they end up losing on the road to Wyoming and Laramie. So. A lot. Those schools we're looking at the TCU because they keep the momentum, and then obviously Texas Tech, can they capitalize on the momentum, and then Baylor, can they get the momentum back with the program? A lot of questions, more questions than answers for those teams coming out of week 1.
Yeah, there really are. And for TCU, look, I think part of it was they caught the buzzsaw that was Deion right out of the box, and there's nobody more prepared to deal with a hype train, even especially one that he helped create. I remember hearing all these things all summer long of Deion Sanders going, "Y'all don't know who we have coming. Y'all don't know." And I was like, "Well, I kind of do, right?" They're transfers from other places. We've heard of them. We've seen a lot of these guys play, but man, I can say, yes, Deion, you were right. I did not know.
That was a coaching mismatch. There was one-way traffic, and I think that was a very impressive part of it, was the fact that his team was so prepared. And look, it was interesting because that Joe Gillespie defense should not have had that many problems against the veer and shoot offense, because guess what? They drill against it in practice. I was surprised about that, but that was a fantastic offensive game plan. They knew to take what TC would give them in the early season, tackling things like that. They're not at the top level, but not refined, especially trying to tackle those guys in space. Shedeur Sanders, you can say what you want about the arm strength, because I'm not sure it's totally there, but that guy was computing at a high level. That guy was executing at a high level, not doing anything crazy challenging, right? And he had a couple deep balls, and one missed and one drop potentially, but the game plan was great. And I know their defense wasn't fantastic, but the fact they actually got some stops, and Travis Hunter having him with the red zone, the big red zone pick, obviously was great. But that last drive, causing that pressure up the middle, making Chandler Morris make the decision to toss the ball to Wiley in the flat and they get him down. No tackles for loss and no sacks, and you still get the big critical stops. That is fantastic coaching. They were so well prepared, and to blow Sonny Dykes and Joe Gillespie and also, Kendall Briles away like that in the coaching department, I think was a big upset. Now, I don't think anybody's going to be caught off guard by that moving forward, but hey, if he can collect the pelts of Sonny Dykes and then Matt Rule back-to-back weeks, we might have something on our hands here in Colorado.
Yeah, look, and I don't think that they're going to, obviously I don't think this is a team that's going to be a CFP contender, but they're going to play a couple in the next few weeks. And look, the same thing like TCU. If Colorado makes the right spots, plays at the right spots, they're going to score with everybody they play for the most part. So you can't really put them out of it with that offense.
Yeah, no, and that's important. And I think, you get a sitting coach and a guy who's got as much respect as Sean Lewis did, to be your offensive coordinator. And with the athletes they have, the offense is going to work. That style of offense is going to work, because if you got those kinds of athletes, you just get them in space, you're going to have some pretty significant success. And they're saying, all right, well, we can't even run the football, so let's give the ball to the running back, and the running back catches 3 touchdowns. That's scheme. They're scheming up, and that's great execution from the players too. I think, Paul, to kind of use a Big 12 analogy, they remind me of Kansas because I think the biggest issue that we're going to see with Colorado is like, what happens if you keep going to that week-to-week grind and you start having some depth issues? I mean, you cannot play. I guess we'll see, but I don't think you can play Travis Hunter that many plays. And so, to me, I think it's good they have like really difficult games early on because they need to strike now while the iron is hot. What happened to KU last year? They had some injuries in the offense. The defense kind of wore down as the year went along. So I think it was positive for them. It's positive they're getting the tough challenges now, but those ones coming up, the USC and Oregon games back to back, yikes, that's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Josh, this week, Texas and Bama, Oregon and Texas Tech. Which is yours? What of those like really are you kind of piqued interest wise on more?
Yeah, and that 6:35, 6 p.m. slot is I mean unbelievable, Paul, for the Big 12. Like we only have not only those games. Let's see if Cincinnati on the CW, right? CW kickoff for football. Let's see if that might be a little something there. If we doubted them, let's see if Emory Jones it might be a little bit better of a player than we expected. Also, you have that game happening, at that point of the day, but going up against that Texas game as well, the Oregon game happening there, and then UCF goes to Boise State. Boise State takes it on the chin against Washington last week, but that still might be a pretty good team and a pretty decent, outfit there. And they don't lose a lot of home games in non-conference, especially too at home. And Oklahoma State went there and beat them a few years ago, but they got lucky with some calls. So yeah, I mean, that's a massive window for the Big 12. I think, I'm leaning towards Texas plus the points just because I think Sark is such a good big game coach. I think we talk about the games that catch them. It's like that weird Oklahoma State game last year, and they blow the lead against Texas Tech. That TCU game was a big game, but just like TCU was just kind of a buzzball at that point, and they were beating everybody. And so like the games along the way trip them up. The big games really don't. The Oklahoma game, my God, it was one-way traffic. So I think that is interested in is another big game situation because they're going up against a good defense, obviously, but they've got guys all over the field who can make plays. JT Sanders, Isaiah Mayor, Xavier Worthy, if he doesn't have the drop issue. Quinn Ewers, I think we're going to keep seeing an evolution. People forget how few games he's actually played as a starting quarterback at this level, and he's getting older, and guys get older and more mature, especially a guy with that level of talent. So that's obviously on the marquee, and then Texas Tech, you mentioned them too. I do not think this game's going to go well for them. The more and more I think about it, to start the week, I felt like Texas Tech was more likely than Baylor to get kind of the upset win. I've kind of almost flipped on that at this point. I think the early start might help Baylor catch Utah a little bit. I mean, the last time we saw Texas Tech in a massive game under the lights was like that Patrick Mahomes honoring game. They did have that Oklahoma game, which was a shootout at the end of last year, but that Patrick Mahomes night was such a big deal, and they fell flat. And then last week, they came out of the gate so hot, they fell flat. Like, there are opportunities for Oregon to take advantage big time. And, Bo Nix, I mean, he has looked extremely, extremely good against the quality of competition that he's gone up against. But still, he's looked really good as he transitioned out of the SEC. So can they put pressure on Bo Nix and can they rally? Because Joey McGuire, they need to find some positive things they can take. If there was some good stuff in week one, they need to feel like after this game, though, that they can rebuild some confidence. But, I mean, that's a problem for both Baylor and Texas Tech. They're staring 0-2 right in the face.
I would think the advantage for Baylor is that the, stud quarterback from the Pac-12 that Utah wants to have out there is not going to be. And then for Tech, you just, they got to face Bo Nix. I mean, so that's where maybe it flips for me. Josh, I'll tell you, I just have a hard time seeing Baylor fixing their issues in a week when a team that's as fundamentally sound as Utah is the one that you're going to play.
Yeah, right. But the thing is about Baylor, like, we've actually seen them have a couple moments they've rallied up front. You know what I mean? Like, the performances have improved sometimes on a week-to-week basis. That's the issue. It's the inconsistency. We see an unbelievable effort against the TCU team last year, and they didn't close the deal out, but, like, that TCU team just had something special. And I thought Baylor played a really strong game, and you can question Dave Aranda's game management and not being, kind of going for the kill in that game against TCU last year. But, yeah, I mean, last week, like, that is not a Power 5 secondary, it looks like, at this point in time, or at least they're not playing at that level. I mean, the way TJ Finley had success against them was really surprising. And I thought Blake Shapen looked good, but, like, you think if Baylor's offense looks good and your quarterback looks good, you should take care of business, and they didn't, and they were down. I mean, they were down like multiple scores for like most of the game. So, I feel like because there's going to be a sense of desperation that, and I'm not saying this is a must-win spot, but we're going to be asking some super serious questions about this program, especially if they get handed to them tomorrow. I mean, we already, I'm sure Paul, as Mac Rhodes told you all earlier in the week. I think the quote was, if you said it was unacceptable, I wouldn't disagree with you. I believe that was the wording. I don't think he's wrong.
No. Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, that was very telling. Hearing him say that and where the energy level was on that team. Well, Josh, we'll just tell the fans what high school game are you doing tonight?
We have the 4-time defending state champion Bryant Hornets 7A here in Arkansas. They're hosting Parkview, the defending 5A state champion. So it's actually a pretty big game, and a couple folks have said to me this might be the game of the year in the state of Arkansas. Not quite the level of high school football you all have down there in the state of Texas, but still some pretty good players up in this neck of the woods.
What's the number gap, like student athlete wise, between 7 and 5A?
It's a good question, and something that in my preparation I should have found out, Paul. So the next time we talk, I will tell you what the number is. I'm still adjusting from my Virginia roots here, but I think the gap was probably like 20 or 30. 15, 20. I think in Virginia, but it might be higher here. I'm not positive.
Well, I'll just tell you, in Texas, 6A teams don't play 4A teams, and if they do,
right.
Even a bad 6A team, you don't pick the good 4A team to beat them. It's just how it goes. But that I don't know. It's different everywhere. There's not a national standard. So, Josh, thanks so much. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Paul. Anytime.
All right. That's Josh Neighbors, host of the Neighborhood Watch, over on our sister channel, Crystal Ball College Football. Jack has a podcast over there, and with Garrett.
Yeah. Don't forget Garrett. Come on.
I mean, I can't forget he,
Yeah, the College Chaos podcast.
Walked into the camera a few minutes ago.
A few minutes ago.
Wow.
We're getting close to an hour ago.
Well, I mean, look, in the grand scheme of how many minutes there are, Jack. It's
okay, if you want to get pedantic about it.
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of minutes. No, yeah, an hour ago, he walked right into the camera. Which was hilarious. I wish you guys could have seen it. It's a good thing we weren't using that one at that exact moment. But anyway, when we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing, and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening
evening game. We, of course, got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package. And we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high-heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 teams that need a good week for varying reasons. Not all these teams had bad weeks week 1. But some teams are in different stages. For example, Miami had a good week 1. I think they need to have a good week against A&M. I don't think that necessarily means in the long, grand scheme of things, and number 5 is Miami. In the grand scheme of things, like I said, Jack, number 5 is Miami. Thank you. Jack doesn't do this every day.
I'm about to be so slow just because you made a point of that.
But number 5 is Miami. I don't think that means they need to beat A&M, but I do think that this needs to be a game that's competitive. I could probably have put Miami/A&M. Both these schools this needs to be a good game. This needs to be a game where you're like, man, I don't know who the better team is. In my opinion, I think A&M is deeper than Miami, and that's why I picked them to win. But I do think Miami needs a good showing this week against A&M as they, really get a true non-conference test here to see if this is a team that can maybe contend in the ACC. I think there's several teams that are behind, but if they can have a good day and maybe even beat A&M, that's going to change my opinion about Miami, possibly even going forward. Number 4, the Texas Longhorns. I think that Steve Sarkisian getting his signature win this week would be, the absolute storybook thing. And look, if they have a good week and he gets that signature win, then that's great. All well and good, But if they have another game like they did last year and lose a close one, I don't think that derails it. It just shows you that they're not quite there yet.
So why do they need it?
I just think that if they want to be who they think that they are this year in 2023, because I do think that a lot of their fans, I think Texas as a team feels like it's a college football playoff team, then they need to beat Alabama. So they need this if they really want to be who they think they are. Now, grand scheme, huge picture, long term with Texas, it's probably not as important as you may make it, but in the year of 2023, if they really want to be a college football playoff team, they're only going to play one team that's this good probably.
Yeah.
And if you are only going to play one team that's this good in the regular season, you better beat them.
I would say, in my mind, they need it because they need to be looking like they're peaking as they head into the SEC.
Yeah.
Are you going to go in and only be a conference champion, not even be a conference champion, and still be like, yeah, we're going to compete for playoff spots here? Or do you need to go in being like, we've already made the playoff that was tougher to make because there were fewer teams. Mm-hmm. Now it's 12 teams. We're in a better conference, but hey, we're still at that level. So that's why I see it as a need, because you're probably not making the playoff if you don't win this game. You'd have to be perfect the rest of the way. So they need a good week here for that longer term thing. I'm not saying like they really need it. I'm not trying to be that guy that puts that on Texas, but I can trying to build in that need. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, good point. Thanks for taking it even further, Jack. I got the ball to like the 7-yard line. You took it into the end zone right there.
Yeah.
That was good stuff there. Number 3, Texas Tech. After you lose to Wyoming, when you had as much hype as Tech has coming in, you're supposed to be 1-0, and now you're 0-1.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a high likelihood with Oregon coming in, a very good team, that you're going to be 0-2. Not only that, there's going to be as many eyes on Texas Tech as there have been in a long time. So for Joey McGuire and what he wants to be able to do in recruiting-wise, you get this Oregon win, man, holy cow. That's huge for you. But if you go out and lose to Oregon, you're 0-2, not going to slow Joey McGuire down, but it makes his job a little harder, and it makes your job harder just in the immediate before you get to conference of like, now you've got a team that even though it's out of conference, they're 0-2, their confidence is kind of shaken. What if Tyler Shuck plays bad? Is everybody around campus going like Baron Morton? They're like 0-2 is a place you just don't want to be. And I say that as we go into number 2, Baylor.
I think you've nailed these top 3, honestly.
Yeah.
Perfect order. I don't know who else could possibly need a win more this week.
Baylor, look, they're probably going to win against Long Island next week. You can't say absolutely because weird things happen.
Yep.
But 0-2 for them with Long Island next, then Texas, then UCF on the road in the first Big 12 game in the bounce house is not ideal scheduling.
No.
There's no ramp. It's just you are there. You're in and the fortunate part for Baylor, outside of like they've got some things, the teeth of their schedule is now. Like this is the hard part of their schedule, the hardest part. Well, you have Utah, Texas, UCF in a month-long span. And now throw Texas State in there because they showed you how tough they were last week and rolled on through Baylor. Baylor winning against Utah, not only for the record and all that stuff and looking forward and what kind of bowl game would you wind up in if you get to a bowl game, if you start at 0-2, all those things. This for confidence and their ability to move forward. Because if they don't win against Utah, I don't know how their confidence is going to get back to beat schools like Texas, UCF, TCU, and Kansas State. And Texas Tech, by God, they're playing them too. So when you've got those teams on the schedule, like you can't lose the games you're supposed to win, and then you can't take away opportunities to get big wins, right? So you've got to get big wins, and you can. This would be a huge win, defeating the two-time Pac-12 champ, rolling in, future conference foe. Huge win for them, but they cannot, and at the very least, they cannot play with the kind of, even if they lost the game to a team that might be better, they cannot play the kind of laissez-faire game they did last week.
This game for the Bears, they need to show some heart and some fight. They need to go out there, and I'm not saying they have to have it as close as TCU last year when Baylor was 6-5 heading into that game. Yeah. TCU was rolling into the Big 12 championship game, hopefully a playoff spot, and somehow they made it a hell of a game.
Yeah,
they need that somehow this week. Absolutely. Yeah. After this week, you start looking at, if you lay a goose egg, you start looking at the rest of the schedule being like, where are the wins?
Yeah.
You couldn't beat Texas State. Hopefully you don't struggle with Long Island. And then it's like, where are the wins? How do you even get bowl eligible? It's a tough schedule if you're at this level. We were looking at the schedule earlier this year before we saw a game. And we were like, 8 wins. Like you should expect it.
Here's the thing. They have 8 home games. They've already lost one of them. To have 8 wins, means that you probably have to win at least 5 of those home games.
At least.
Yeah. Well, if you lose another one, now you only have 6 left.
The road games aren't easy.
Yeah, and the road games aren't easy.
You're the first Big 12 game at the bounce house. You play at TCU, at Kansas State. The easiest road game is at Cincinnati. What, Paul?
Sorry. They need to not tell me this stuff when I'm on the air. Sorry. Distracted about. Anyway.
Okay.
Please edit this out of the video, Emery. That was my bad. Yeah, but they have to play better. They absolutely have to play better. They have to show some fire. They have to show some intensity, because if not, you're behind the 8 ball. Something bad. Number 1, Clemson. Now, look, they're playing Charleston Southern. Should be a win for Clemson. But big teams have lost to small schools, especially ones. But Clemson needs to show in the next, not just this week, but in the coming weeks, that they've got some juice to them, some ability to do something exciting, because Monday night, and give all credit to Mike Elko and Duke for their absolutely stellar defensive performance, but Monday night showed that they have got problems. Like they can't playmaker their way out of a hole anymore like they could before. And that was
because they don't have playmakers.
Exactly. They have Will Shipley.
They won't take him in the transfer portal. The young guys either will transfer out or not pan out. Like you have, of course, you're Clemson. You should be able to have at least one Will Shipley, at least one high school recruit that's just the guy. But when he's not a quarterback, that's already an issue.
Well, look, they've got Will Shipley and they've got Cade Klubnik. And because Cade is very athletic. But if he doesn't have receivers that can separate, then this
isn't 2017 anymore.
Yeah. No, it's not.
It is a surprising amount of years away from 2017. Yeah. I don't know if you've done the math lately.
Yeah. So, all right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Jack. Thanks to Garrett. Thanks to Emery. Thanks to Owen. Thanks to Levi. Thanks to all of our guests. Thanks to Young Day and the folks at Club Sandwich who brought us this glorious trash can rice bowl here. Everybody enjoyed it thoroughly. 2 thumbs way up from the entire staff here. So if you're in town to watch Baylor in Utah and you're heading over to Magnolia at any point, Club Sandwich, go get yourself a trash can rice bowl. Thanks to Bird Culture and Ford for sponsoring the Friday show. We're on tomorrow morning on KWTX and right here on 365 Sports at 9 o'clock. We'll see you then, everybody.